about the potential for the existence of lead in the property. The bill amends the Virginia Residential Property Disclosure Act to require that information about the potential for presence of lead in a home be included in the buyer beware disclosure provided to purchasers of residential properties in Virginia. This transparency and community health proposal is a step forward for putting power back in the hands of average Virginians looking for a new home. I hope that it's the will of the committee to pass the bill, Madam Chair.
Are there any questions to the patron?
Madam Chair,
Senator Bell.
we have council tell us what's the difference between the bill that came through here before.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, the bill that came before, Delegate Askew's bill, only addressed the lead in the buyer beware portion, and that bill took out the independent disclosure requirement for drywall and moved it into the buyer beware. Delegate Lopez's bill also addresses the buyer beware portion, but it also addresses landlord-tenant. So if a landlord knows of a lead in a home, they have to disclose that. And I believe it is that I believe that's it.
Yeah, mostly it deals with the tenancy problem that was missed in the previous bill.
Further questions? Are there those here in support of the bill? Oh, there are some technical amendments.
Yes, we talked about it earlier today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On line 42 of the engrossed bill, after section strike 300J-21 and insert 300G-6. And on line 148 of the engrossed bill, after section strike 300J-21 and insert 300G-6. And that just changes the
Proper code section.
right, the proper code section in the Clean Water Act. The section that wasn't there was for drinking fountains. The new section addresses homes, and that's the proper.
Right.
Motion on those technical amendments.
Move the amendments.
Moved and seconded that we adopt the technical amendments. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposition? Okay, are there those in opposition to this bill? Motion on the bill. As amended. Okay. Okay, all those in favor of House Bill 1161 as amended, please vote yea or nay on your board.
Thank you, Madam
Ayes
Chair.
14, no 0.
Thank you, Madam
Ayes
Chair, members of the
14,
committee.
ayes, no, 0. Thank you. Delegate Bagby.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 788 deals with racial restriction covenant. The bill will prohibit containing a restrictive covenant from being recorded and provides the form for a deed of reformation to be recorded to remove any restrictive covenant. African Americans and other people of color find themselves purchasing a home and receiving a deed that reads, "Said lot shall not be sold, leased, conveyed, devised, or otherwise disposed of, or held or occupied by any person not of Caucasian race." And so this bill seeks to address that. I looked up and, come on, abracadabra.
Bam.
Yes, so that complete your presentation on the bill?
You guys are so much fun.
That's right.
Yes, that completes.
All right, is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Hi, I'm Renee Robinson. I represent the community group from Leadership Metro Richmond that approached Delegate Bagby with this bill and would love the support from the committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Erin Barton with the Realtors, and we support this bill.
All right.
Brian Kozil with the Virginia Housing Alliance. This issue that I've done a lot of research on and would get, a couple calls on a yearly basis about restrictive covenants. And I think this is even though they haven't been in effect or since 1948 with Shelley v. Kramer, a really good way to remove them from the deed of title. We support.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition? All right, we have a motion to, okay. All right. Where is it?
He's not sure how, but he's going to.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Is there any further discussion? All right, we can vote on the board.
Last 15, no zero.
All right, you're good, so
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Certainly, thank you. All right, next up is Delegate Aird.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Before you should be House Bill 757. Yes.
All right.
Ready?
Proceed,
All right,
yes.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 757 is a bill that this body has passed many times before. It regards and is fondly known as Ban the Box. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 757 would prohibit state agencies from including on any employment application a question inquiring whether the prospective employee has ever been arrested, charged with, or convicted of any crime subject to certain exceptions. And outside of those circumstances, House Bill 757 establishes that a prospective employee may not be asked if he has ever been convicted of any crime unless the inquiry takes place after the prospective employee has received a conditional offer of employment. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, this is a practice that is already occurring through executive order, and this legislation merely codifies that practice. So I hope it will be the pleasure of this committee to move this bill forward.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? All right, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Oh, somebody's coming up. Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, Tanisha Griffin, New Virginia Majority. We support this bill.
Thank you. All right, anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, the bill's before the committee.
Move to report.
All right, we got a motion and a second to report the bill. Any further discussion? All right, vote on the board. Yeah, well,
Yes,
I don't
George?
know. Yeah.
I thank the committee.
That's 15, no zero.
I don't know how to revoke this.
You want to revoke the proxy? You want to keep voting for it?
Yeah,
He doesn't know how to revoke his proxy.
how do I
Can you
revoke?
revoke his proxy?
She doesn't mind thinking.
She's probably a better vote than he is, so maybe leave it as is.
We'll find it. All right. All right, next up is Delegate Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 581. It's about LGBTQ competency training. This bill would mandate that all state employees get training on competency with LGBTQ so they can best serve all Virginians and help employees avoid showing prejudice towards citizens of the state of Virginia. This came as a request of two of my constituents where I have to get involved and advocate with the state agencies because they were suffering discrimination. And I have some numbers that may be shocking, but there was a poll conducted, and specifically in Virginia, based on the survey taken, 80% of participants reported experiencing harassment or mistreated in the job setting. 26% were denied a promotion, and many lost their job when they decided to come out to identify themselves as from the LGBTQ community. This training will help individuals and employees to understand how to interact and handle different situations with this community in the Commonwealth. The training will not only help state employees learn how to better react to other individuals, but also it will help interactions between staff members, supervisors, and co-workers. There's many cities and localities that are already in this training at the local level, and it's going to be offered to new employees during the onboarding process, and the implementation taking that training will be starting January 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2021. And I hope it's the pleasure of this committee to pass this bill.
Are there any questions of the patron? All right. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this bill?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, certainly.
We're just, conversing over here. I don't see any other language in the code that talks about non-discrimination training in general. Am I missing something? Mhm.
Mr. Chair?
Delegate Guzman, do you have any information that will respond to what Senator Donovan has asked?
So what it's talking about is cultural competence, and we are alluding that it will be discrimination, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, I thought the state did I'm just saying, we're listing one type of discrimination here. Is there there's got to be non-discrimination training in the state in general that you're adding to. Am I missing something?
That will be a question to council.
Mr. Chairman?
Right. Senator Bell.
Mr. Chairman, I would refer in the bill to, let's see, lines 52, 53, establish and administer a program to ensure equal opportunity for all applicants and state employment, state employees of all incidents. So there's a few areas where this is mentioned, just the wording's a little bit different and they're broad.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Senator Bell. Senator Evan.
Yeah, this may be for council on lines 129 and 130. It talks about subdivision A9 of 2.2-1201. I'm just looking on paper. I don't know what 2.2-1201, is that referring to any other cultural, or not cultural, but I don't know what the word is, sensitivity training or cultural competency?
Council, you.
He looked it up. What number was it?
2.2-1201, 1 at E.
2.2, 1201. Wait, I'm getting to it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. So 2.2-1201 details the duties of the Director of the Department of Human Resource Management. And A9 gives the Director the duty to establish and administer a program of evaluation of the effectiveness of performance of the personnel activities of the agencies of the Commonwealth.
All right. Any further questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is, should this be non-discrimination in general? Because we have other areas of discrimination. I just feel like if there should be some consistency in the code, and either this doesn't go in this part of the code and what we're looking for is somewhere else, or we need to think about general non-discrimination in the code if that's what we're going to do, if you see my point.
I understand your point, and I think that, we're sort of late in the process in terms of what we would be doing this year on setting up separate programs, but we certainly could come back and look at that next year. So, any further discussion? All right, are there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Josh Schutzer with the Family Foundation. Our concern is with the cultural competency concept, really, which seems a little bit beyond the scope of the agency. We think it would be absolutely appropriate to, as Senator Donovan has mentioned, if we want to do training on here are the policies, here are what we expect of you, here are the things that you need to know. But this really goes beyond that by its very nature. And I think we're going to be setting a bad precedent if we do this, because really, where's the limit to all of the things that we could all stand to be culturally competent on? And it certainly is probably a good idea to be culturally competent on a lot of things, but it just doesn't seem to be the role of the agency. to require this. I think this bill could perhaps be made better by striking the second paragraph that's added that makes it a requirement for every employee. I think you could create it, make it available, but making a requirement, I think is going to be problematic. So, thank you.
All right, is there anyone else that wishes to speak to the bill? All right, the bill's before the committee.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Depending on what the committee wishes to do, I don't know if the patron would want to come back in a week, if there still is a week, to consider whether or not it needs to be broadened, or if you'd just like to take it up today. I don't know what the appetite is.
Mr. Chairman, I would second that because I think
Which bill?
we want to speak to all non-discrimination in a general way. And if we're going to codify something, and maybe this is new and it was just a general statement, managers should train. But if we're going to codify it, even though things are moving fast and it's late in the game, we still have time to change this and make it applicable to everybody before we pass it through if it's amenable to the patron.
I believe what I would say, Mr. Chairman, is that at this point it will be up to council if there is other place in the code where it addresses discrimination in the job place based on what I mentioned.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification. Yeah, I think that I would say if there's not, then this statement should be more broad, that there should be training programs like there are everywhere else for non-discrimination on everything, which I think they're probably doing, but we probably should make sure we include that and not just list one entity. We should make sure everybody has cultural sensitivity kinds of training. And maybe we don't seem to find it anywhere else in the code, so it may be an opportunity for you to change your language to, I think that's what Senator Eben is saying, so that it is inclusive.
All right. Yeah, that's fine, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, then do you want this bill passed by for the day then, so you can work on that language? Okay. All right, without objection, this week the bill will be passed by for the day. Thank you very much, and
All right.
we'll see you next week, so.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Delegate Price.
Hello.
Hi.
Which one would you like to start with?
Your choice.
Let's start with 340.
All right.
Okay. Mr. Chairman and Senators, last year the General Assembly passed Senate Bill 1737 to help federal workers in Virginia prevent evictions during and after furloughs, and that bill expired in September of 2019. So what House Bill 340 would do is make those provisions permanent in the case of future, well, we hope that they don't happen, but future furloughs. And so because this is being more proactive instead of reactive, there are two changes. One is that the furlough would have to last at least 14 days in order to trigger these provisions for the federal workers to be able to use them, and also that it's only available for them to use up to 90 days after the end of the furlough. So this really is to just kind of continue the work that we all did under the leadership of Senator McPike last year to make it permanently available for them.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the patron? No, this one does not have to go to the finance. So, any questions of the patron? Anyone in the public wish to speak in favor of the bill? Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Christy Mero with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we do support the bill. We thank the delegate for bringing it.
Certainly. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone in wish to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, we got a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote on the board.
As 15, no zero.
That bill's reported. Next bill. So.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman and Senators, I do have a substitute for House Bill 420.
Okay.
Move the substitute.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt a substitute for consideration. So, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, the substitute's what we're working with now.
Okay, so yes, Mr. Chairman and Senators. So this started out to be a directive for the Virginia Department of Emergency Management to get with local emergency management teams to actually come up with a plan for the Commonwealth on how to kind of do what FEMA is under the direction to do to make sure that their emergency preparedness materials are available in different languages. It did come with the FIS, and unfortunately, it did not make it into either of the budgets this year. So what we have before us with the substitute is a suggestion for them to see what can be done, knowing that we've talked and everything, and so we just want to make sure that, especially for my area, there was a neighborhood when the last hurricane was coming. They live in evacuation zone A. They are mostly a Spanish-speaking neighborhood. They had no idea that they existed in evacuation zone A or that it was being evacuated until it was the moment that they had to leave. So just making sure that as we're preparing for all Virginians to be safe in these emergencies, that those with limited English proficiency to include those that with cognitive disorders that would prevent them from understanding, to make sure that they're included in our plans.
All right, thank you. Is there any question for the patron?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Senator Reed.
is Director Stern here from VDM, or is there anybody here from VDM? Yeah, if you could just speak to the implementation time of November 20th, is that enough time to review for you and Dr. Stern to?
Yes, we could work with Delegate Price. We'd be happy to work with her and make sure that we ensure the intent of the delegate for this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Donovan.
Just one more question for
Sure.
the
Wait.
agency. I'm so sorry.
Before
Just
you
one
sit
more
down.
question. The emergency broadcast alerts, are they in English only?
I don't know, but I can find out for you.
Okay,
I'll circle
just-
back with your staff.
And maybe just curiosity, because I think that's how most people find out, is they hear it on the radio or something. And we have a lot of multi-language channels and other things now. It may be worth, I don't know if they interpret them, but that may be something worth considering.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may just say one more thing. This is not in any way, shape, or form saying that the department and the localities are not doing their job, but right now, as it stands, a lot of the resources that they have, you have to know that they're available in order to go find them. So we're just trying to see how we can do it, that it's a more outreach perspective. But I do want to thank the department for being awesome in our emergency preparedness.
Any other questions of the patron? Anyone wish to speak from the public to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone in opposition? No. All right. We got a motion and a second to report the bill. Is there any further discussion? All right. Actually, we need to amend the motion to report to send it up to finance.
So moved.
All right. So it's they've asked for it, so let's send it up, and it'll be quick, I guarantee you. But at least, yeah. So, all right. So the motion is amended to say that we will report and re-refer to Finance and Appropriations. All in favor, vote on the boards. All opposed, opposed. Thank you very much.
That's 15-0.
15-0 reported. So, all right. Delegate Wyatt.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I have House Bill 454, and this bill encourages the Commonwealth to explore new products that are beginning to hit the market, which go beyond recycling. Specifically makes agencies aware of the availability of recycled materials and products certified as climate positive, which means having a negative carbon impact. Climate positive materials are hitting the market now, and more appropriately, upcycling. And this is a great opportunity for Commonwealth, economic development opportunity for the Commonwealth. One particular company in particular is UBQ Materials. The founder is with us today, Rabbi Yehuda Pearl, who we know him, who introduced United States to hummus, and the owner of Cyber Hummus, who operates as his plant right here in Colonial Heights, Virginia, and employs thousands. UBQ is in current discussions now with many of the nation's plastic companies to use what we see in our landfills, unsorted trash that's being crushed and ground up, dried, mixed with polymers to make plastic. in plastic seating, plastic trash cans, and plastic recycle bins. So I know a few of those. They will be the first manufacturer here in North America, and hopefully we'll be able to secure them. So they'll open a facility here in the Commonwealth. I know I have a few folks that want to speak in about this. First, Chuck Lesson, who is the Virginia-Israel Advisory Board Chair.
All right. Any questions of the patron first? All right. Then those who wish to speak in favor of the bill, come forward. So.
Mr. Chairman, members, I'm Chuck Lesson. I'm currently the Vice Chairman of the Virginia-Israel Advisory Board. Our board wholeheartedly supports this bill. I understand that the administration does also. We have, as you've just heard, Rabbi Yehuda Pearl, who's going to step up now and say a few words. I would say that our board has had the privilege of working with many Israeli companies. This is potentially one of the biggest projects in terms of our economic development activities that we will have the opportunity to see. Rabbi Pearl.
Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity, first of all, of working here as a member of the Virginia community at Sabra, which has flourished under your auspices and done quite well. And I hope that this next venture that I want to bring to Virginia will even exceed those hopes and expectations of Sabra. This is a revolutionary idea. It takes things that would normally be put in a landfill, upcycles them so that they are re-entered into the normal working of materials in the community rather than be burned or decompose in the landfill and have greenhouse gases emitted. What I want to assure you is that I'm a business person, and I know that Virginia is for lovers, but I think it's also for lovers of business that make profit. And we are a profitable business that doesn't require any subsidy from the government or any kind of funding. We are self-sufficient. We do what we need to do, and we hope to have an impact on not only Virginia, but the world, starting here outside of Israel for the first venture and making a home for us in Virginia. Thank you very much for Sabra and hopefully for UBQ as well.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in favor? All right, is there anybody that wants to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, the bill is before us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Bell.
Is this the delegate's first bill here at the Senate?
Yes, sir. I have two that still have a little bit of traction. But yeah, this is my first time before this committee and before the Senate.
I think I'm going to have to yield to Senator Reeves. I just look at him and know he's got a question in there.
All right, Senator Reeves. So,
Mr. Chairman, can the delegate explain what this mini trash can is composed of?
Well, what I have learned, Senator Reeves, Mr. Chairman, Senator Reeves, what I've learned from this, it is what you see, whether it be plastic straws, chicken bones, garbage, plastic bags that are in our landfills all around the Commonwealth, and is dried, mixed with plastic polymers. They have patented what they call UBQ material. The magic sauce is what they refer to make plastic pellets in many different colors and then sell to make various things. So I am no chemist or scientist. I am merely a elected official representing the folks from Hanover, New Kent, King William County that are before you, and hopefully we'll be welcoming these individuals to the Commonwealth to create many more jobs and help really address the need of our landfills.
Mr. Chairman, just one follow-up question.
Certainly, Senator Reeves.
I know the rabbi mentioned a substantial investment. What are we talking about substantial? What does that future investment really mean?
I have to defer.
Senator, members of the committee, Matt Benke with UBQ. Initial project in the United States might be upwards of over 200 employees and over $100 million.
Mr. Chairman, one last one. And how many acreage of property would you need for that type of facility?
Probably 20 to 30, at least.
Mr. Chairman, just speaking of the bill, Spotsylvania County is a wonderful place to locate a business such as this. So I would just,
I'll let
lay that out there
Delegate
for you.
Wyatt handle that.
I know well before when I got here, both Governors McAuliffe and Northam have visited this facility, as well as the minority leader in the Senate and the current Speaker of the House. So I know they've been meeting with these folks and visited their facility in Tel Aviv, and they've been working on this for quite a while, and I would love to see them in the 97th district, but I'm sure any locality around the Commonwealth would welcome them. So thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I actually do have a question.
Senator Donovan.
I am just curious, what percent of this is added plastics, and what percent of this is materials from waste?
Been reading. Mr. Chairman, Senator Donovan, it's about 50%. So 50% of the material you have right there is virgin plastic, and then the other 50% is a combination of the organics and the polymers that you mentioned. So, and that's about half and half too. So half and half is chicken bones and food waste, and the other half are plastic straws, plastic bags. We do make many different types of products that could be 100% UBQ. Some of those are building material products. So if you can imagine one of our facilities in the future in India, literally in those huge garbage towns almost that they have, they're building bricks out of this 100% waste. So it's amazing we could potentially
Mr.
do.
Chairman.
Senator Donovan.
I love a paper on it, but as a follow-up, you do know that we're not going to have any more plastic bags, right?
Or styrofoam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions of the patron there? All right, we are to the point where we need to act on things, and is there a motion?
Move to report.
All right, and is there a second? Yeah.
We refer to responsibility.
All right. All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. All right, next is Delegate Bourne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee.
Sure.
I think I've got several bills.
I've noticed the name. So.
Let's take probably the easiest one, which is House Bill 7. And I say that's the easiest one because we've been trying on that since it's left the House side to really fine-tune some language to help communities who might have an overabundance of low to moderate affordable income housing not oversaturate their market. And we've been unsuccessful in reaching consensus to try to make the bill palatable to everyone. And so it would be my request that we take the bill by or strike the bill. I'm not sure what the proper procedure is in the Senate so that stakeholders can work together over the next year to address all the concerns.
Take it
Yeah.
by.
Take it by.
I would
Okay.
move
That's
that we
a-
take it by.
Okay.
So this will be carryover for the year. We got a motion and a second on that.
I move we take it back.
Yeah.
Take it back.
That's what I said, here, carryover for the year. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All right, vote on the board.
Continued.
Yeah.
Continued. To be continued. Oh, sorry. Jeez.
Ayes 15, no zero.
We give her extra votes and she doesn't use them, so.
I'll use them. I know.
All right, next.
Whichever one you put up on the board is the one I'll do, Senator. Okay, House Bill 6. Quite simply, this is the source of income bill, which seeks to prohibit discrimination for potential tenants of property based simply on the fact that they are using a housing choice voucher or other lawful source of funds. I'm sure that many members of the Senate have seen this bill or heard about the bill. We have made some amendments to it on the House before I get to, I think there's another amendment. But the amendments really do try to strike a balance. So we've carved out 4 for people who might own 4 units or less because that's not their business. They're not in the business of rental properties. They're not in the business of property management. So we felt like that was a good number. And then I believe council has the next amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On line 153 of the engrossed bill, insert subsection I, it shall not be unlawful under this chapter for an owner or an owner's managing agent to deny or limit the rental or occupancy of a rental dwelling unit if a person's source of funds on which such residential real estate related transaction is dependent is not authorized within 15 days of the date of the landlord's approval of such person's rental application.
And Mr. Chairman, speaking to that amendment, what we're trying to do is one of the concerns is that these landlords may, if they choose to accept a voucher tenant, have to hold their unit open waiting for approval processes related to the voucher. And so what we want to do is sort of give some sense of closure to both the tenant and the landlord that within 15 days, we're going to have all this buttoned up and whenever the lease starts, it starts, but you're going to have 15 days to do what you need to do, check the boxes, cross the T, dot the I's, so that we can all move, the landlord and the tenant can move forward in the transaction.
All right, does anyone want to move that amendment?
Move the amendment. Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the amendment. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That amendment's adopted, so that's it,
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Bell.
One question I have, and I've talked to the patron about this, is some of the folks have talked to me about this amendment, which I like, and have said that they're concerned about the federal application versus this being state, and is this enforceable? And I don't know if you or if the Attorney General might come up and speak to that issue.
Certainly. Yeah, there are two lawyers here from the AG's office who are much smarter than I am, so I'll let them answer that question.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Tom Payne with the Attorney General's Office, the Division of Human Rights and Fair Housing. What was the question more specifically?
The federal application, once the question is, would this, that's a federal application, this is a state law, what precedes what, is this enforceable?
I think it is enforceable. Right now, the Federal Fair Housing Act does not include source of income as a protected class. So the state would be permitted to add that. HUD typically views states expanding rights under fair housing laws to be fine with substantial equivalency. What they do not want to see is states pulling back protected classes that are in the federal law. As far as application with regard to HUD's regulations for housing authorities, I think the 15-day time period is within the regulations for what the housing authorities have to do anyway to do their approval process. So I don't think there would be any conflict.
Mr. Chairman, one follow-up.
Senator Bell.
If a housing authority doesn't fulfill their obligations or meet it, what are the remedies for that for a landlord?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I don't know that there are remedies that would be against the housing provider because the housing provider is just acting within the scope of the proposed exemption. As far as the housing authority, the state would have no authority over what that housing authority does with its HUD regulations as far as complying with HUD regulations. That would be an issue for HUD to take up with the housing authority as far as how it's complying with its HUD regulations.
Yes, Delegate Bourne.
If I might, and I think that's right, but one of the things that we want to do with this amendment is the federal regs have 15 days in them, and I believe there's some language that gives them some out about or as soon as practicably available or after for the larger PHAs. What this amendment we want to do is say you've got 15 days, and that's consistent with the federal regulations. It's not in conflict, and I think it gives some comfort to both the tenant and the landlord. And as a result of this amendment, if we passed it and it became law, there would be no violation of discrimination. There couldn't be an allegation of a discrimination based on the voucher if it took longer than 15 days and that landlord said, well, it's been day 16 or day 17, I'm going to open it back up and go to my second candidate for this apartment.
Any other questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Reeves.
When we get down to line 152, for rental dwelling units, is that for apartments, or is that for apartment complexes, or is that for buildings? What is the rental dwelling unit defined in the code?
Long story short, Mr. Chairman, Senator Reeves, 4 dwelling units would be 4 apartments, so individual apartments. So if you had a house that was carved up into 4 individual apartments, that would be 4 units.
Mr. Chairman, further question?
Yes, Senator Reeves.
So this is pretty much going to apply, for the most part, for any of our apartment complexes in the Commonwealth that have the big buildings and multiple tenants?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I assume that you said that was put in basically to make sure you we're capturing people who this was not their business.
Right. If you'll see that one of the amendments that we made along the way is an exemption for four units or less. And there are other exemptions in that code that allow use of a real estate agent, use of advertising. And it's really to help folks who might have a rental property that was their first house, but they're not in the business of real estate management. They're not in the business of renting houses or apartments. And so we worked with the realtors and other stakeholders to carve them out.
All right. Any other questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And Mr. Mason, Delegate Bourne, I know you just said exactly what we wanted to hear, because at 15 days, it's not good for the tenant or the landlord to not execute and move along.
Correct.
So I want just to hear you say again that regardless of what federal contract or what the federal law may say, at the 15-day mark, by dropping this in, which is already federal law, you can say, this process is not complete. We had 15 days to do it. I'm moving on to another qualified tenant.
Correct.
Is that so?
That is the exact intent of that. And I think, as the Attorney General representative said, in the federal fair housing law, source of funds is not a protected class, but we are going to add it here, hopefully. And so there's no conflict from that perspective. But again, at the end of 15 days, if the process is not completed, the landlord would then be free to say, okay, I've got to move on. I'm going to go to this person who was next in line, and it won't be considered a violation of this particular section of the fair housing law.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Mason.
So, thank you, sir. So, Delegate Bourne, I think I've had way more conversations with people about your bill than any of mine. So, if we could share a couple next year, that'd be spectacular. As I understand, I'm trying to figure out, as Senator Reeves just said, under 4 and then everything else. But there's certainly going to be a percentage that are simply out of the price range. Is there a way, as far as this process works, to eliminate a certain number? The $2,000 apartment on the bay on Shore Drive in Virginia Beach. Chances are the voucher's never going to qualify them. Is there a way to eliminate that in the contract price, or is the process such that someone would come with that apartment and say, I want to try to qualify?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Senator Mason, I would say that as a landlord of a voucher holder, the process is kind of what you were alluding to at the end of your statement. So I have a voucher for a certain amount. It's based on my income, family size, lots of other factors. I find a place that I want to live. Maybe the voucher covers all the rent, maybe it doesn't. I still have to go through the qualification process with the landlord, demonstrating that in addition to the voucher, I can cover the delta between the voucher and what the actual rent is. We're not asking anyone to change their rent, make the voucher fit a $2,000 a month unit. What we're simply trying to do is just eliminate the ability for landlords to discriminate against potential tenants simply because they have the voucher. So if I come to you and I want to rent your $2,000 a month apartment on Shore Drive, and I've got a $750 voucher, I still have to demonstrate that I can pay the difference. And if I don't have the income, I think those are the types of things that are still available to landlords. We're not trying to shoehorn vouchers in where they wouldn't otherwise qualify. It's just we don't want discrimination simply based because someone has a voucher.
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Mason.
And so, I think every person in this room agrees with that part. You do not want to discriminate. We do not want to make sure that people are just in particular apartment complexes. There's some conversation about many of the systems being backed up, having some issues, having some challenges today. Does just dropping this structure on a system that is currently struggling in places, is that going to be tenable? Or how are we going to make, it's the implementation phase of this that I've struggled with in my conversations.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, Senator Mason, I would say that at every level of government, we can always be more efficient and more effective in providing the services to the people that we represent or serve. Sure. I think certainly this, I believe, will be a tool to help our public housing agencies and the administrating agencies of these voucher programs become more efficient, be more responsive in doing what they need to do to make sure that the people who hold the vouchers can actually get into good quality, decent housing opportunities. I think what I've committed to some of the stakeholders to do is to make sure that when we come back next year, is that we also provide some supports and some more accountability measures so that they're not overly taxed or being lackadaisical in the administration of this, because I have heard the complaints about certain public housing agencies, but there are a lot of good ones across the county. In fact, Newport News is one of the best in the state. And so I'm committed to work on those issues going forward, and I'd be happy to work with you to do that.
I think you have a co-patron for your bills next year, so.
Mr. Chairman, last one.
Yes,
Is there any
Senator
such,
Mason.
is there any such ombudsman-type position that exists today that you just described very well, regionally or in the state or among these existing organizations?
Not that I'm aware of. There may be somebody here from the administration that does know, but I think that could be a place, much like we've done with student loan ombudsman, other folks, where there's a central repository of resources and supports and information that can help administer this program and make sure that we are achieving the goals that we all want to achieve through this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the gentleman.
Are there any other questions to the patron? All right, anyone wish to speak in favor of the bill? Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman. Brian Ball, Secretary of Commerce and Trade, thanks for letting me speak before you today. And thanks to Delegate Bourne for bringing this measure to you. There are a couple comments that were made, and I just wanted to touch on them. Number one, the amendment that's before you, I hope addresses some concerns that we heard, that there are some housing authorities that don't process these applications as promptly as we would like, and I think that it gives you a sharp, clear cutoff that at 2 weeks you go anywhere that you need to go to. The landlord can lease to whomever they please. The second thing, following a comment that Senator Mason made this morning when we chatted with him, I did reach out to Susan Dewey, who runs the Virginia Housing Development Authority. And we are, VHDA is committing additional resources to support public housing in Virginia in the coming years. And part of that would include training. I didn't specifically talk about an ombudsmanship concept, but they do. There is an organization that VHDA is very involved in that has public housing authority management teams talking with one another, and she was more than happy to say, yes, we can help build the certification process and best practices and how to get it done in a timely way into the training efforts that we're planning to introduce during this year. So I hope that is of some comfort to members as they consider this measure.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next.
Tom Payne again with the Attorney General's office, and our office supports the bill.
All right, thank you.
Tanisha Griffin with New Vision Majority. We support the bill.
Thank you.
Mariah Williams, Housing Opportunities Made Equal of Virginia. We support the bill. Speaking directly to your point, we actually have a mobility program that is specifically designed to work with voucher holders and helping them to find housing in the private rental market, and have been very successful with helping those individuals navigate. I will say that 113,000 individuals throughout Virginia rely on vouchers, many of which are single mothers and individuals with disabilities. And I have been really grateful to Delegate Bourne for pushing this issue, but also to members of this committee for taking the time to understand why this is an important issue. And so, yes, we support the bill, and thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Daryl Hayat. I'm a housing attorney with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We want to say that we support the bill. We thank Delegate Bourne for introducing the bill, and we think it goes a long way towards solving this housing crisis here in the Commonwealth. Thanks.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Brian Koziel with the Virginia Housing Alliance. We support this bill. I've got members that administer numerous vouchers, agree that there are often some issues with them, but overall, the benefits of increasing access to affordable housing throughout our communities, particularly when we're looking at the folks that need our help the most, far outweigh any short-term financial burden or administrative costs that there may be. So we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that wish to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition to the bill? Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Nicola Whiteman. I'm here on behalf of BAMLA and DAOBA, and together our members house over 1 million Virginians. And we are here to oppose HB 6. Our housing provider members accept vouchers, but many do so primarily because of the administrative burdens. In order to accept payment under the program, housing providers sign on to a contract, a copy of which was just circulated. I just want to highlight some of the problematic and onerous concerns or provisions in the contract. One, the amount of assistance can be changed at any time. The housing authority can terminate payment at any time and for any grounds. The housing authority can pay up to 60 days late but may not be charged any late fee or penalty. Failure on the part of the housing authority to make payment cannot be considered a lease violation, and the lease may not be terminated. Some of these were alluded to earlier. Even beyond these terms, if forced to accept vouchers, housing providers are subject to additional inspections and administrative hurdles. The program is currently plagued by problems, delays, additional workload, and additional costs. Administration of the program across the county is inconsistent at best, and our members have experienced delays of up to 60 days holding units vacant by housing authorities. Importantly, and what I think is most important, we want to share, we're housing providers. We want residents in our units. We want to provide safe and habitable housing to residents across the county, across the state. However, and we're supportive of the goals of the voucher program and the intent behind the legislation. Indeed, the program was initially created at the request of and with the full backing of the real estate industry. But there are problems, and this solution is not going to address some of the concerns that we've raised, particularly just alluding to the amendment that was proposed that speaks solely to inspections. It doesn't speak to the late payments and some of the other issues that I raised. And some of the other concerns that plague the program existing. So rental subsidies are a critical tool for those to accept who cannot otherwise. Rental subsidies are a critical tool for those to accept who cannot otherwise afford safe and decent housing. However, the voucher program itself and its administration are deeply flawed. Forcing housing providers into a broken federal system is a misguided approach and will ultimately have a counterproductive impact on affordable housing. We ask that you to pass this bill for the year. Thank you.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes. Question? Senator Locke.
What do you suggest?
Well, I think, the most important thing for us is to focus on the administration of the program. Again, we want to provide housing. We're in the business of providing housing. We're in the business of providing homes. We want to work on some of the problems that we believe, if adequately addressed, will encourage more housing providers to accept vouchers and provide more homes to Virginians.
Follow-up question.
Senator Locke.
Did you work with the patron on this piece of legislation?
Well, my colleagues have had multiple conversations with both the patron and other partners. Again, this is something, providing housing to Virginians is important for all of us. It's a common goal for all of us.
Thank you.
All right. Next to speak.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. My name is Kirsten Downing, and I'm a housing provider in Virginia Beach, Virginia. As a housing professional, I'm committed to the idea of fair and affordable housing. However, forcing an owner, a private person or company, to participate in what is a voluntary program, and furthermore, forcing private owners to enter into a federal legal agreement with a government body and a contract that they have no recourse and no ability to negotiate is not, or decline to enter into, does not provide solutions to the broken federal program that this bill is trying to force on us. While the proposed amendment sounds nice and 15 days is a nice thought, that 15 days on the federal level only speaks to the housing quality inspection, not the overall process. And it raises the question whether federal regulation or state law trumps when we're talking about a federal contract that we have then entered into. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, member of the committee. My name is Ray Ahmed. I'm a small owner. I own 6 properties and own and manage 6 properties in the city of Richmond. You know, I started 20 years ago. I wanted to do some real estate investment, and I really like the idea of Section 8, be able to get my money, not have to worry about getting paid. It's guaranteed, you know, especially when I was starting off. I didn't want to worry about not getting my rent and be able to pay my mortgage. But the problem really, you know, they're talking about 15 days. That's just the approval. That's never been a problem. The problem comes in the inspection. Sometimes it takes 30 days, 45 days to do inspection, and it doesn't really make sense. The inspection really it shouldn't take more than half an hour to do. And basically, you come in and make sure everything is working, the water's working. And, you know, I really don't understand why it takes them 30 days, 45 days to do the inspection. That's where the problem comes in. And it's basically a broken system that needs work on, and forcing people to accept that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to award them and give them more power when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it really doesn't make sense for them to take 45 days to do inspection rather than trying to fix the system. We're trying to force things on people. Thank you for letting me share.
Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Elena Ferranti. Work for the family business Chanel Properties. My father immigrated from Sicily when he was 14. Loves America. He says that he lived the American dream and he feels lucky every day that he got to live it. His apartments, we own about 175 units in Colonial Heights, Virginia, 30 minutes south of here. He's always considered them half calling and half business. He retired at the age of 65, and he still goes to work 6 days a week on site. We have townhome-style apartments that rent for around $795 for a 3-bedroom townhome. We have very reasonable rents. We are providing housing for Virginians who are maybe down on their luck. Leaving fascist Italy and then coming to Virginia and being told that he has to sign a contract. He has zero choice. Doesn't sit great with him, but he would be okay with it if the process wasn't this lovely piece of paper. I know you said you've seen it. Everybody probably has seen it. It's a long, long process, and the problems with it don't end with the inspection. They are ongoing the entire time. But even more than that, I would like to urge you to think about the future. You all, as a legislative body, have spent a lot of time this year fixing what you may believe are mistakes of the past in occupational licensing. You know what happens when you overregulate a system. It leaves other people out. When you bring on new regulations, you're going to hurt an already ailing housing system. We have a huge shortage of apartments in Virginia, and when you start piling on regulations, what happens is developers will choose another state in which to build their apartments. We've been lucky. They've been choosing Virginia over California and New York for a while. Go HQ2, but let's not make the same mistakes that California and New York have been making. Please, please, please understand the unintended consequences of these regulations before you pass them, especially any amendments that come in the day of. Do we really know what this bill will mean for Virginia's housing system 20 years down the road? Please vote against this bill or give us all time to really work out a solution that does not have question marks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Brian Gordon with the Apartment and Office Building Association. I actually just wanted to speak very briefly to Senator Locke's 2 questions. Firstly, yes, we have had many, many conversations with Delegate Bourne. He's been very generous with his time. We were not able to reach accord on amendments that mitigated our concerns on the bill. But to your second question, as what do we propose as an alternative? And I think that's really sort of the problem that we're faced with, is that the voucher program really is one of the very limited number of tools that are available to us to help individuals who need the assistance to get into safe and affordable housing. to deconcentrate poverty. The problem is it's not a good tool for this, for all of the reasons that the preceding speakers have spoken to. I think just a couple of ideas that we have floated. We did attempt to get funding in the budget this year for a state voucher program that would essentially be the Section 8 program, but without all of these additional strings. And I think that would go a long way, essentially giving us more tools in the toolbox to address this issue. But secondly, back in 2010, I think it was, we worked with Housing Opportunities Made Equal to create a tax credit program to incentivize housing providers to accept the vouchers and to help make them whole for the impacts of working with the program. And I know that there is legislation advancing this year that would expand that tax credit to other parts of the Commonwealth, and we think that's a positive approach as well. So again, we would ask for your opposition to the bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Delegate Bourne, you want to sort of wrap up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to do my best to remember my upbringing with this last word. There have been a lot of things that have been said today and throughout this process on House Bill 6. And while I don't want to ascribe motives, one of the most frustrating things that have been said, and I think one of the most misleading things that has been said, is that we are forcing people to do something. Make no mistake about it. This bill is not requiring any landlord to take a voucher. It does not eliminate your ability, my ability, and I am a tenant, a landlord for a voucher holder. I got a credit history. I got a criminal history check. I got a list of people who are going to be in the house on the lease. It doesn't eliminate any of those opportunities for you. All we are saying is that simply because someone has a voucher, that should not, in and of itself, be the reason that I or anyone else is denied an opportunity to live in the neighborhood or the apartment complex that they want to. We talk about the bureaucratic burden that this might put on somebody. Well, there's a couple things that the big, long, scary, hairy contract that they talk about tells a landlord if they use a voucher. How are you going to get paid? When are you going to get paid? Things like that. These are accountability measures that I would think we would all want so that we understand and appreciate that our government dollars are not being frittered away. And Mr. Chairman, Senator Locke, I agree wholeheartedly that the apartment owners have had a lot of conversations with me. But there's a second piece to that. The goal line has been continued to be moved each and every time. And if we addressed the bureaucracy concern, there would be another concern. And so a lot of people have said, hey, why don't we take another week? Why don't we take, you know what? I'm ready to have the bill, its fate decided, because I believe in the goodness of people, that we shouldn't be discriminating against people simply because they might not have as much as you or I.
All right. Just to comment on a few things here. Thank you very much for the words you said there, Delegate Warren. Senator Locke and I have been on the Housing Commission for a number of years, and this is an issue that we looked at just a few years back. What I can tell you from my recollection, at least, Senator Locke may remember more than I do, but was that the overriding issue in terms of concerns that people had about something along this line was the amount of time it took for the inspection. And we heard a little bit of that today, that sometimes it's taken 30 and 45 and 60 days for, inspection to be done, despite the fact that there's a requirement to get it done within basically 2 weeks. Which is why I think that the amendment that you came forward with today is responsive to that concern and certainly would alleviate most of the issues that have been addressed there. If you have an agency that is not getting these things done in a timely fashion, the landlord is not bound by any other situation that would force them to have to take someone when the inspection did not occur in a timely manner. And I think that we can continue to look at other things here to address this, but I think it's time to sort of make a decision on this, as you said. Anything you wanted to say,
Mr.
Senator
Chairman,
Locke?
Yes, the Housing Commission did address this a few years back extensively. And someone did say, I don't remember when, that maybe we should have the Housing Commission look at this, at which point I said, no, we're not. We've already addressed this extensively. And the reason I raised my question was to bring out what you just said. And I wrote down the number of times I heard the word force. And I'm glad you addressed it, because no one is forcing anybody to do anything with regard to this legislation. And quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion on this bill, and I move to report.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Is there, and it would need to go to finance.
Mr. Chairman?
No, that was the other bill. That was the other bill that had that.
Is this one?
No, this one does not have finance. So that's the motion that's before us. Senator Donovan.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Bourne and I have worked on this before and had many talks about vouchers. If it were up to me, we would have all portable vouchers and would find a way for people to choose where they live. I think that's a much more dignified way for us to deal with. And we have a robust private sector that has a lot of apartments for rent. We had a situation in Henrico where Essex Village, the members of Essex Village, which was a deplorable Section 8 housing that was privately owned. It's a little bit better, but in my opinion, still not dignified. Where the members there that had non-portable vouchers requested portable vouchers. And I will tell you that Henrico County, in an attempt to intervene between HUD and the residents, because when it's a privately owned HUD establishment, the county has no say. They cannot inspect, they cannot do anything. That county assessed its available space at 32,000 available rental units in Henrico and guaranteed that they would facilitate making sure anybody with a portable voucher can indeed find housing. What we are doing is we are not fixing our own house with any of the obstacles that make it hard for people to voluntarily participate in this. And I disagree with the interpretation of the bill, that there is a sense that there's a loss of control in deciding contracts. We are asking the private sector to fix a problem that we should fix. And there are a lot of ways with a state, if there are issues with this, we can intervene. We can be the intermediary between HUD and portable vouchers and make it so that this is an attractive program, which it is. I know many people that rent with portable vouchers in Henrico, and they have worked out a system with those vouchers. But for us to say that there is a mandate is out, there are many ways to solve problems. We can agree on the problem, and I do. I just don't agree with the solution that you've sought here. I think it's not ready for prime time, as evidenced by the lack of consensus and engagement. I think it has reason to do jeopardy to our housing marketplace. And I really wish you would consider finding a different approach to solving this that was more engaging instead of a stick. And I'm not going to be able to support this bill, and I'm going to substitute motion that we pass it by for the year.
All right, there's a substitute motion to pass by, to carry over, pass by for the year. Is there a second to that motion? All right, so that's the motion that's before us now. Are there further comments that people wish to make or discussion? All right, so the motion is to carry over for the year. So we will vote on the board. So if you want to carry over for the year, it'd be yay. If you don't, then it would be nay, and we would go back to, if the motion did not pass, then we'll go back to the motion to report.
Ayes 6, noes 8.
All right, that motion does not pass, so we go back to the original motion, which is to report the bill, and we do need to make a correction there to have it go to finance. So you want to amend the motion to make it report and re-refer to finance?
I move to report and re-refer to finance.
All right, so that covers that there. Any further discussion in the committee? All right, we will vote on the board then, so.
Ayes 8, noes 6.
All right, ayes 8, no 6. The bill was reported and re-referred to Finance and Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're almost done.
Yeah. All right, next bill you got?
Which one are we going to put up there? 18? 810. 810. All right. So House Bill 810 is a Section 1 bill that seeks to establish a stakeholder group, which will be led by the Department of Housing and Community Development, along with the Virginia Housing Development Authority, to study and develop the framework, regulatory framework, and associated issues with setting up a statewide low-income housing tax credit, much like they have at the federal level. Many other states have used this to successfully create and bring online more affordable housing units. This bill, to be clear, does not actually establish the tax credit. All it does is set up a stakeholder group process by which that tax credit program would be developed, and then should we adopt it next year or should it be introduced next year, we could go down that path. But this is just to set up a stakeholder group to look at those issues.
All right, are there any questions of the patron on this bill? It's a Section 1 bill, so. All right, is there anyone to speak in favor of this bill and with the setting up the stakeholder advisory group?
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association. Be brief. As you can tell, we clearly have an affordable housing crisis in Virginia. And the previous bill discussion aside, we need more units on the ground. This program federally has produced about 3 million units across the country in the last 30 years. And 19 states have set up a program to subsidize and augment that federal program. So strong supporters of the bill. Again, it just starts the process to set up the credit. So we'd ask for your support. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We also support the bill for all the reasons stated.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Breen with Virginia Bankers Association. We support the bill and appreciate the opportunity to work on this moving forward. It's been a very successful program at the federal level, and hopefully we can get something started out of the work group on the state level as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Kozul with the Virginia Housing Alliance. We support the bill and look forward to participating. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Randy Dillard, Virginia State Conference of the NAACP. We support this bill and appreciate Mr. Bourne looking at affordable housing concerns for Virginians.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, Aaron Barton with the Realtors, and we support this bill.
All right, thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition to this? All right, the bill's before the committee.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion or questions? All right, we will vote on the board.
Ayes 14, no 0.
And this one doesn't need to go to finance, so save one trip anyway. So.
Can we send it there?
All right, you got one more bill?
Last bill, I think it's 594.
All right.
Oh, that's not up today? Oh, that was an easy one too.
All right.
All right, well, I think, oh, you already reported it?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the members' time and attention to the bills.
All right, Delegate Ayala.
Would you like to come up with me? I think Delegate Ward is anxious. Love her. Good afternoon, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman. HB 852 is before you. The reason for this bill, as many of you may or may not know, my background is in national security, cybersecurity for nearly a decade, and I know the importance of training. Users are the biggest threat to our information technology structures, and this particular bill would develop a requirement for VITA to create a cybersecurity training program for all state employees so our government can better assess, detect, report, and address any type of security threats. Just recently, as you may have seen in the mainstream media, attackers from Iran launched their own cybersecurity attacks on our government. The next attacks on our country are being fought in the cyber world. I equate cybersecurity threats to the next Katrina in our digital space. There's clearly a lack of proper training for guarding against these very dangerous threats from both domestic attackers and international ones. Not to say VITA is not doing an excellent job already doing some training, but this would help create and mandate training for all employees. Currently in Virginia, just to emphasize, state employees are not required to undergo any type of standardized cybersecurity and data security training, and we just desperately need that in our Commonwealth so our employees can continuously recognize these dangers. With that, you have House Bill 852 in front of you.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of the bill? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, the bill is before the committee. All right, we got a motion and a second to report. And this one also does need to go to the Finance and Appropriations Committee. And so to report and re-refer to Finance and Appropriations. So, all right, so we have a motion and a second to report and re-refer to Finance. Is there any further discussion? All right, we will vote on the board.
Thank you.
Ayes 13, no zero, one abstention.
All right, the bill is reported and re-referred to Finance and Appropriations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
All right, next up is Delegate Converse Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Which bill should I start?
Your pick.
Or my pick? Okay. Well, how about HB 1569?
1569.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
HB 1569 is an administration bill. It would advise purchasers in purchasing a home to exercise whatever due diligence they deem necessary to determine the existence, condition, or regulatory status of any impounding structure prior to completing the purchase of the property. The issue faces the issues facing the Commonwealth is how to reduce the number of instances where a purchaser of a property unknowingly becomes an owner of a dam. Adding this disclosure requirement would alert the purchaser to determine the existence, condition, or regulatory status of any impounding structure prior to completing the purchase of the property. The purchaser would be able to make a more informed decision given the potentially high, expensive expense involved in operating and maintaining a dam that may be necessary to protect the life and property. I hope the committee sees the importance in voting in favor of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, are there questions of the patron? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Yes.
Did we have a bill like this for awareness of the responsibility of dams on property? No, it's dams. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may, dams are addressed currently in the residential disclosure property. Oh, you're here.
Sorry.
Let the
Didn't know if I had to come up. Russ Baxter with the Department of Conservation and Recreation. The delegate is carrying the bill on our behalf. The only other mention of dams in the real estate disclosure, Mr. Chairman, in answer to the question from the senator, is whether or not the property is located in a dam break inundation zone. And that's where the area that would be flooded if a dam were to break. So that's there is a bill that Senator Locke carried that is identical to this bill that came and was supported by the Housing Commission. So,
okay, so we did have it.
You have heard this issue before this session. You might remember your bill,
Senator Locke. Yeah.
So you remember your bill? Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if I may, there was another bill that had 3 concepts within it that did not go through, and that's probably the bill we're thinking of.
Yep.
And then this was a standalone for just this one issue of the dams.
All right, enough. Any further questions of the patrons? So, that's right. All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this measure?
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, there's no conflict. They're identical to Senator Locke's.
I
this
believe
portion.
that's the case because I looked on the LAS this morning and the Senate adopted a substitute for Senator, or the House adopted a substitute for Senator Locke's bill. However, it wasn't posted yet. And so my presumption is, I'm just not sure what the substitute did. But
Counsel, you want
the
to
bills as they were introduced are identical.
fill us in? So.
Mr. Chairman, so Senator Locke's bill and Delegate Converse Fowler's bill, originally, they only had a couple word differences. Senator Locke's bill was conformed in the House General Laws Committee, so that substitute is now identical with
That answers my question.
the
then.
bill
Thank you,
that
Mr.
Delegate
Chairman.
Converse Fowler has before us today.
All right. Senator Locke, do you have any view on this?
She's okay with it.
She's okay. All right. All right. Anyone in opposition to this bill wish to speak? No. All right. We got a motion to report and a second. And does this one? No, this one does not need to go upstairs. So, all right. Any further discussion? All right. Vote on the board. The motion is to report.
Ayes 14, no zero.
All right. The bill is reported. Thank you very much. Your next bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That would be HB 838.
All right.
And Mr. Chair, there is a substitute.
Move the substitute.
All right, motion was made and seconded to adopt the substitute. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right, the substitute is what's before us now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. HB 838, I think it's before everyone. We've gotten peace in the valley on this bill. It actually has to do with disclosure. I'm in real estate myself. And when you go to purchase a property, you are right now, according to the law, you are advised to consult a website for all the disclosures, for the dam disclosure that we just discussed, for any disclosure or buyer beware, you are advised to consult and a website is listed and you sign off on that. The issue would be that, are the people really going to the website? And, what if you don't have internet? So we did find a middle ground here where we can ensure that people will get the information, the way it's worded. They're not advised to review the property disclosure statement. They're advised of it, which puts the onus on the real estate agent, which it already is, for them to inform and advise. And these amendments were given after much thoughtful consideration from the senators before me. So I just want to thank everyone for the work on this.
All right, are there questions of the patrons?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Mason.
So we talked about this. Thank you very much. You were at a 2-page handout when we were talking. We no longer handing out anything?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
There is really no requirement to hand it out, but it leaves it, and council advised on this as well, where you are being advised of the residential property disclosure. That might be on an iPad, that might be in a computer, that might be in an office. But that doesn't mean you'll get the handout necessarily, but you could. So it allows for either way, either option to get the disclosures. They still will have to sign off that they are aware of what they were made aware of the disclosures.
Sure.
So,
Mr. Chairman, you were worried
Senator
about
Mason.
sending people to a website, and are we still sending people to a website?
Mr. Chair, as the way it's written and the way council as we've worked it, they can be advised through the website or on paper. But at least it's kind of back on the agent to make sure that it is reviewed. And maybe council could explain it better the way we worked it out. I might not be explaining it well.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, work with the patron on this and also the realtors. And what they were doing before, basically in the disclosure, was just giving them the link for the website. We had a couple bills, I think, last meeting about this. So instead, and then it's kind of up to the buyer to go to that website and read through the disclosures on the list of the buyer beware. What they're doing now is the realtor would basically show them this is the website, walk them through that, or give them a copy of the printed materials. So it's a little bit more interactive just to make sure that they're getting it.
All right, any other questions or for the patron? All right, anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill?
Mr. Chairman, Aaron Barton with the Realtors. There is peace in the valley on this bill, so thank the delegate for working with us.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, the bill is before us.
Second.
Yeah. All right, there's a motion and a second. This does not have to go to finance, so any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 14, no zero.
All right, that's 14-0. The bill's reported, so thank you. All right, Delegate Scott.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon to you.
This is House Bill 1253. It passed the committee unanimously. It passed the floor 99-0. This bill simply allows, this is an administration bill that helps the Virginia Defense Force improve their efforts of outreach and retention for professionals. They're able to increase the age. Right now, they can retain people over 65, but they can't recruit 65 to 75. So what this bill simply does is allow them to recruit 65 to 75 to get those retired doctors, dentists, and lawyers who have nothing to do, who want to come back and contribute to the state and the Commonwealth. And so we want to make sure that they can do that, and I would ask the committee to pass this bill. Thank you.
So in other words, you're sending the recruiters after me. Is that what you're doing?
I'm not, no aspersions. You look so young, who would have known?
That's right. All right, yeah. All right, any questions of the patron? All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? All right, we got a motion and a second to report the bill. And I look at my cheat sheet here. It does not need to go to finance, so you're in good shape. We will. Is there any further discussion?
We could send it there anyway.
Huh?
No.
We could send it anyway.
That's right.
Since this is his first time here.
No hazing. Aggie, get me. Help
Well,
me,
then I
Aggie.
do have a
I
question.
would adamantly fight that motion. It's my brother from
That's right.
I do have one question.
Certainly, Senator
I'm
Donovan.
deeply concerned, and maybe it should go to finance, because an octogenarian ought to maybe take a look at this.
We now have one, so.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to bring an elder abuse statute bill next year.
All right. We have a motion and a second to report the bill. So if there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 12, noes 1.
Thank you. No, I did not, ma'am. Who's that? Who's that talking? I didn't even hear. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next is Delegate Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have House Bill 819. No substitute, no amendments, I don't think. This should just be clean the way it is. What this bill does is it moves the prohibition on settlement service companies receiving kickbacks, rebates, and so forth from one section of the 55.1 to another, where it's under the supervision of the State Corporation Commission, gives the State Corporation Commission and the Attorney General's office the authority to enforce the anti-kickback legislation so that somebody actually will be interested in enforcing it, and then decriminalizes the process. Because under previous law, under current law, the penalty is a Class 3 misdemeanor, but only if it's prosecuted by indictment. So you'd have to go find a Commonwealth's attorney somewhere to get interested in a real estate kickback scheme and then panel a grand jury to prosecute a Class 3 misdemeanor. We think it's more appropriate to have the regulatory agency, which is the Bureau of Financial Institutions, that regulates settlement companies and their licensing and their bonding and so forth, to also enforce the anti-kickback provisions. And I believe this has got the support of the Bankers Association, the Virginia Land Title Association, all the associations that deal with this, and they think it's a good bill, and so I hope the bill will pass.
All right. Are there questions of the patron? Oh, you didn't hear that.
I didn't hear it.
But,
I wasn't into the
yeah,
microphone, so I just, no,
yes.
I didn't hear that.
All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone in the public who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right. The bill is before the committee.
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? And if not, then we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no zero.
Thank you, Mr.
Bill's
Chairman.
reported.
Thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate your time.
All right. Delegate Tran.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I have House Bill 1201. Much shorter.
All right. 1201, okay. All right.
So this bill is very similar to Senate Bill 380 carried by Senator McPike that had passed out of the Senate. And so there's a little bit of a difference, and I can talk to you about that. But House Bill 1201 gives localities the option to set criteria that would help determine responsible bidder in their invitations to bid. And the criteria include completion by the bidder and subcontractors of specified safety training programs established by the U.S. Department of Labor, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, participation by the bidder and subcontractors in apprenticeship programs, and maintenance by the bidder and potential subcontractors of records of compliance with applicable local, state, and federal laws. So it just really gives localities that option to fine-tune their invitation to bid criteria if they so choose to do so. And the difference between my bill and Senator McPike's bill, and in our House we did conform his bill to mine. We haven't talked, he and I have not had a chance to talk about next steps. I was just looking for the lines. So I'm sorry, hold on one second. It is on lines 18 to 19. We added in, so the criteria includes a history, and here's the difference, or good faith assurances of, and then the criteria I identified, and part of that was from council's good counsel, so that it ensures that it's the prime contractor, the bidder, as well as any potential subcontractors that they may bring aboard.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron? All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Jason Asher with the Mid-Atlantic Pipe Trades, and we worked with the delegate and with Senator McPike on the bills, and we'd like to ask you to support it.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone in opposition to the bill? Senator Donovan.
It's really just procedural, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Without Senator McPike here to speak to the differences, and since they have not convened, I would suggest that we conform this bill to Senator McPike so they can work it out in conference and we don't jeopardize his bill.
Second. No. All right, well, we've got a motion to conform your bill to Senator McPike's bill as it passed the Senate. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right. The bill as conformed is now before the committee.
Move to report as substituted.
All right. Now we got a motion and a second to report the bill as amended. Any discussion? Let's vote on the board.
Ayes 12, noes 1.
All right, 12, ayes 12, noes 1, the bill is reported.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, Delegate Leftwich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is House Bill 1340. Last year, there was pursuant to the Code Commission, we recodified Title 55.1, and this bill is just to clean up, fixing a few errors that were made.
All right, are there any questions of the patron?
Second.
All right, wait. Let's make sure we got public testimony here. Anybody who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Anybody wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, now you can make a motion. So, all right. All right, there's been a motion and a second to report the bill. Any further discussion? All right, then let's vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no 0.
Ayes 13, no 0. The bill is reported. Thank you.
I wish they all went this well.
That's why.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, just come back here. We'll take care of you here. So. But next is Delegate Krisak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a line amendment. So this bill, HB 334, started out I have a number of mobile home parks in my district, and one of the concerns is when a new owner comes in and redevelops it for some different purpose.
All right, just a second here. We get a substitute here.
Okay, it's not, I don't think, is it, yeah, it's a substitute, I guess you're right.
It is.
Sorry.
We got a motion. Is there a second to adopt the substitute? All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Substitute's been adopted. Continue, Delegate Krizek.
Thank you. And so anyway, we started this because the concern was when a new owner comes in, they redevelop it, and the folks who live in the trailer park are then stuck with a trailer that's not really a mobile trailer anymore. And so they have to pay to haul it off. They've already lost their home. And now they're kind of being punished a second time. And so what this bill was going to do was just make it so that the owner would be responsible for disposing of the otherwise or removing the mobile home from the property. We've had lots of negotiation with all the parties, and we have peace in the valley now, and that's what this bill does with this substitute. So at this point, what happens is the landlord would provide $2,500 in relocation expenses, which can be enough, but in some cases it's not enough. But also there's $3,500 in Planning District 8, which is Northern Virginia, as you know. So that was the compromise, and I think everybody's supportive at this point, and you can poll the audience if.
All right. Any questions for the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Could I clarify, it's the seller or the buyer that's going to be compensating it?
It's going to be the person who's compensated is the person who's moving the home.
No, who's doing the compensation?
Oh, it's the let's see, it's changed a few times. I believe it is the seller. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, that was the landlord. So, any further questions of the patron?
I mean, I'm sorry. Well, let's bring.
Let's see.
We've
what
got
people wanna
Randy
say.
Grumbine's here and Chip Dix. And
Mr. Chairman, Randy Grumbine, representing the Virginia Manufactured and Modular Housing Association. We worked with the delegate on the bill, and we're comfortable with the language. It does, the seller knows in advance the cost to transact his property, so he can account for that expense appropriately.
All right, further question? Yes, Senator Donovan.
I'm just curious why this is an absolute, that there's a moving cost if the property is sold. It seems like we're accelerating costs significantly. I talked to some owners of parks in my district who had given 3 years' notice to members. I mean, they were very diligent in making sure they were good communicators. And according to them, most people just moved their home. And that there were a few that were a challenge and an issue beyond that. But it seems, it's inherent in a mobile home community that the homes might have to move. And I certainly think that when there's a hardship in that there's reason to include it, but it seems that we're just paying for everybody all of a sudden to move. And I'm wondering why it's not permissive.
well, because it's necessary. Many states are doing this. Maryland, for example, covers the 10 months of rent prior to the move. A number of states are doing it, giving much more than what we've come up with here. And you've got, the mobile home parks, and I can tell you from experience, we had one where virtually 500 units had to move, and 400 of them couldn't. They just fell apart when you moved them. So folks needed relocation assistance as well, and that's not what this is asking for. This is just asking to be able to haul this thing off and throw it away, essentially, their home. So if the park hadn't been sold, they would still have this home. And these parks are really good low-income communities. I would love to see a way in the future we could encourage more mobile home parks because they are a great resource for low-income tenants.
All right, any further question?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Donovan?
So what happens if the land isn't sold, but the park's just closed?
That's not this bill. We don't deal with that situation. Yeah, if it closes, that.
All right, are there any other questions for the patron? Anyone want to speak in favor of the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We do support the bill. We think it's an important step right now. As Delegate Krizik mentioned, people who reside in mobile home parks tend to be on the lower end of the income scale. And they also, however, tend to be homeowners. Based on what we know, we believe, based on some research that's been done in Virginia so far, we believe that over half of the people who live in mobile home parks own their home. And some of those homes, as Delegate Krizik mentioned, can't be moved. And under the terms of the bill, the payment, the relocation payment, would be subject to a written agreement through which the resident homeowner would agree to move the home. So this is a very limited bill, has a limited scope, but it does something very important. It would be for folks who had homes that were in good enough shape that they could be moved. We know that moving those homes can cost up to $10,000. So this is just paying a fraction of what these residents, these homeowners would need to get to actually move their home. And we ask you to support the bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Ruff.
Let me clarify that. The $2,500 will be paid to the individual that's going out. And even if that house was not in condition to move, and then the seller would still have the responsibility of moving that, or who would have the responsibility?
Yeah, the homeowner still has, Mr. Chairman, the homeowner has that responsibility. This money is in lieu. I mean, the homeowner has to move that house out, and this gives them this would give them some of the ability to do so.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, if you look at lines 17 through 19, it's very clear that this only applies when there is a written agreement between the seller of the park owner, and the homeowner, that the payment will be made and the homeowner will use it to move the home. So I do think it's narrow in scope, applies to probably just a few situations, but certainly very, very important for those homeowners who have relatively new mobile homes. Probably it's their only asset and it's their home.
Again, this is Randy Grumbine representing Manufacturing Modular Housing Association. So this language evolved over time, and the original bill was a little broader and didn't define some of the cases of putting an owner of a community responsible for moving somebody else's property. We weren't comfortable with that. There may be liens on the home. So this really did narrow it down and defined the parameters, and we're comfortable with that. Support the bill.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tyler Craddock on behalf of Manufactured Housing Communities of Virginia. Mr. Grumbine and I work with Delegate Krizik and Poverty Law Center on this, and we're comfortable with the bill.
All right, thank you. Anyone in opposition to the bill? All right, the bill is before the committee.
Move to report as amended.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report as amended. Is there any further discussion? All right, well, we will vote on the board then.
Ayes 11, noes 1, 1 abstention.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and the bills are reported. All right, next is Delegate Rasool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Before you is House Bill 99. House Bill 99 is a product of a variety of stakeholders coming together to try to help victims of domestic violence. The problem that we have before us, Mr. Chairman, is that safe housing can provide a pathway to freedom for some of the victims of domestic violence, but there are many barriers that get in the way. What we see is that all too many times, because of complex relationships, that a person's credit has been unfortunately abused in the relationship as well. There are certain, in the Violence Against Women Act, certain protections that are already integrated into HUD. What we're doing is making sure that we have certain protections in place to at least allow in the substitute that came out of the House all the stakeholders, housing stakeholders, et cetera, work together to find a way to at least have a consideration of some of the damages that may have been done because of someone who's coming out of an abusive relationship. And so what we want to do, Mr. Chairman, is to try to find a way to ensure that we give them a pathway to freedom and not hold certain folks hostage in an abusive relationship.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron?
I have a question,
Senator
Mr. Chairman.
Donovan.
I support this concept. I'm just curious how you're going to prove that a landlord did not comply with consideration and therefore allow recovery of damages and application fees and other things. How would you possibly prove that somebody didn't consider?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Senator Donovan, it's a good question. Certainly, in court process, they would need to. The burden would be placed on them to be able to prove that. This was language that the realtors, apartment association, as well as some of the housing advocates felt comfortable to try to put up a certain barrier there to at least have them consider that evidence. And so what they did, Mr. Chair, Senator Donovan, is actually to try to prescribe more specifically a few specific points. So if you're reading further down, so for example, a letter, an incident report, a court order, which tries to help us understand what options we have before us. The original bill that was that had some concerns was actually having it as a protected class, and that is what led us to try to find some language that gave many of the stakeholders some calm in moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Are there any further questions of the patron? Anyone wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Adele McClure. You may know me as the Executive Director of the Legislative Black Caucus, but I am not here in that capacity. I am here as a concerned citizen and on behalf of my dear friend. She has spent half of her lifetime surviving. In the 15 years I've known her to be extremely brave, positive, and resilient. It saddens me to read these words from her, but I stand before you because I know that this bill gives her hope. And with immeasurable strength and bravery, she wants to make sure that her story is heard and to support the countless people who are surviving family abuse and the isolation and barriers that result from it. Here are her words. When I first learned about this bill, it was shortly after my husband nearly killed me. A simple question about football triggered him, and he began punching me repeatedly in the face. I kept pleading with him to stop because I was concerned about the baby that I am 5 months pregnant with. He responds by dragging me out of the house, leaving our 5 small children alone, tying me up, and throwing me in the trunk of my car. He blares the music, and in that moment I begin to say my prayers and prepare to die. I begin to come to terms with the fact that he may set the car on fire with me in the trunk, pregnant and bleeding. At one point, I begin to lose consciousness because I cannot breathe. He left me in the trunk overnight. When he opened the trunk in the morning, I took my first full breath in hours while he continued to demand an apology for making him mad the night before. He then tells me to put makeup on my severely bruised and bloodied face and go to work like it never happened. This was routine. I put on makeup, grabbed the kids, and left. This is my 8th attempt to leave him in the 15 years we've been together. I have found that it is extremely difficult to leave due to the barriers that I face when searching for new housing, even with a good-paying job. My husband rented 3 cars in my name and then totaled them on purpose. I now face filing for bankruptcy. My children and I are unable to have a place of our own, free from abuse as a result of my credit history. It is my hope that you pass this bill. It is a crucial step in the right direction. Chances of survival from another return continue to diminish, and at times I am out of options. These words could be my last public words, so I want them to count. Signed, Anonymous and Hopeful. Thank you for your time.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jonathan Iglesias with the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance. On behalf of our 65 sexual and domestic violence agencies statewide, we wholeheartedly support this bill, and we're incredibly grateful to Delegate Rasool for listening to the needs of survivors, not just in his district, but those statewide. who also happen to be his constituents, bringing those needs forward with this bill, I think is a huge step in the right direction. Last year, survivors through our programs accessed over 300,000 nights of emergency shelter and transitional housing. For as many as those survivors who were able to access safety and housing in their time of need, still as many were turned away due to lack of capacity. Unfortunately, the story you just heard and the story of the constituent that brought this issue forward to Delegate Rasool is not an uncommon one. They face incredible barriers to accessing not just shelter, but stable housing, which is a huge predictor in their long-term health and safety. The barriers that Delegate Rasool's constituent faced, we believe the bill in its current form, in working with the partners and housing stakeholders, that this kind of helps pivot us in the direction of making substantial moves towards protecting survivors as a class in the future. And we're incredibly grateful to Delegate Rasool and the survivor who brought this story forward. And we're going to continue working at the table with our folks who are committed to this work. Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and I would echo everything that Jonathan just said. When I was working at the local legal aid in Richmond, I represented victims of domestic violence and saw their struggles, including their struggle to get safe, affordable, and stable housing. And Mr. Chairman, Senator Donovan, to answer the question that you raised earlier from the lawyer's perspective, what this does is it makes or it requires a landlord to do something out of the norm. The norm is most landlords use third-party screening companies. They send in their criteria, and the screening company sends back a yes or no for a tenant. So if I'm a victim of domestic violence and I have bad credit, or I have no credit because my abuser wouldn't let me do anything at all, including take out a credit card, that report by that third-party tenant screening company will probably come back, no, don't rent to Christy because she doesn't have good credit. And what this bill requires is for the landlord to let me bring that letter from the domestic violence counselor or that criminal investigation report, and he has to or she has to consider it. If the landlord does not consider it, the tenant's assertion remedy, which is already in code and has been for a long time, would enable me to file something in court and say, here's my situation, judge, and I brought this information and I have no indication that the landlord considered it because he denied me because of my credit. The landlord would then have to answer to the court as to why he did that. So we think it's a very good bill, a very good step in the right direction, and we thank the delegate for bringing it.
All right. Next.
Mr. Chairman, Erin Barton with the Realtors. We support this bill. We have worked very closely with the other stakeholders that you've heard from already and with the delegate, and very much appreciate him bringing it. Again, we support it.
Thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tommy Herbert representing the Virginia Apartment Management Association. Would just like to echo everyone else's comments. We really appreciate the patron and bringing this bill and allowing us to reach consensus on it. So we're very supportive of the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mariah Williams, Housing Opportunities Made Equal. We also support the bill through our housing program. We have HUD-certified counselors who, as you can imagine, work with individuals who face many barriers to housing, including, having adverse effects of being a survivor of an abusive relationship. And so we've been grateful for the opportunity to work with the various stakeholders on this bill and think it's a good first step in making sure that survivors of abuse can access housing. So thank you.
All right. Anyone in opposition to the bill? All right. We have a motion to report in a second. Is there any further discussion? All right. We will vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no zero.
All right, 13, no zero. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Certainly. Delegate Carol Foy, is she here? Delegate Sullivan. All right. All right. Delegate Sullivan.
Sorry to be in the hall.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much. I know you've had a long day. This is a bill brought to us from the Uniform Code Commission, which you know is a commission of great legal minds that meets regularly. Brought us
832.
Sorry?
House Bill 832.
832, I'm sorry. So this is it's actually a revised version of what's called the Uniform Registration of Athlete Agents Act. It's been adopted in numerous other states. I guess 14 states already have it, 19 have, of the original 19 have the revised act. This is directed at protecting our college athletes. As the NCAA loosens some rules, and frankly, there are huge repercussions for our athletes, our college athletes, should they misstep with respect to engaging with an agent. All this does is create a registration, a licensing process, if you will, here in Virginia for agents who want to be an agent in Virginia and approach young college athletes at Virginia universities. So what this would do is create under DPOR a process by which someone who wants to be an agent with athletes in Virginia to register, provide information about him or herself, and it also provides a number of different requirements on if they're going to sign contracts, what kind of disclosures have to be in those contracts, and what kind of notice has to be given to colleges and universities. So it's an attempt to make sure that our college athletes don't stub their toes. It is self-funding under the Callahan Act, I might add. What funds it is registration fees from the athletes. It is, as I said, a simple bill on what I think is an important, in an important area now, so that our young college athletes don't get in trouble with nefarious people and the NCAA.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Reeves.
Delegate, I don't see an age restriction. Would this apply to high school athletes as well? Could they secure an agent?
I think the answer to that is yes. What the bill does, and of course what the NCAA does, is have repercussions for someone in terms of their eligibility status if and when they sign with an agent. So, Mr. Chairman, Senator, I would direct you to, and I'm going to flip through some of these pages and try to find them, but there are notifications that have to be made. For instance, I'm looking at I think I'm on page 5 of 10, line 294, notice of educational institution for purposes of this section, not later than 72 hours after entering into an agency contract. You have to, has to give notice to the school. And if you look a little above on that same page is the language I was talking about, that a contract that any agent operating in Virginia has to have included in that contract on line 267 is a warning to the student athlete that if you sign this contract, you may lose your eligibility to compete as a student athlete in your sport. So there are requirements. So whether you're talking to a high schooler or a college sophomore, all these things would apply.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any further questions of the patron? Anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone
I
wish
think all the college athletes are in school.
Mr. Chairman,
studying hard. So, but Senator Reeves.
And I apologize to the delegate beforehand because I didn't read this bill before the committee, but I'm trying to go through it. They have groups that aren't domiciled in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Would this apply to some of these groups like the Next College Student Athlete out of Chicago, where they're kind of a clearinghouse to help high school student athletes get scholarships to various colleges and help kind of, the recruiting process has changed since I went through.
Sure has.
And so would this apply to those providers that provide that via online and kind of commuting or teletalking, teleline, whatever, for those agencies, or is this just the physical presence in the Commonwealth?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's the physical presence of the agent, I think it's the physical president of the athlete. Remember, this is a revised uniform code, so depending on what you're talking about, Senator Reeves, someone may already be subject to this in Chicago, but if you want to enter into an agent relationship with a Virginia athlete, you will be subject to this act. And frankly, this is not something that's going to be a surprise to agents out there around the country because a lot of states already have this.
All right, are there any further questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Senator Bell.
looking through this, and I may have missed it, did you address minors in here? So, meaning the guardian or someone would have to intervene on behalf of them?
It does, and it sounds like it is there. The answer is yes, Senator Bell, and I'm looking for it right now. But if someone is a minor, this requires notice to parents and the engagement of the parents as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I guess my concern is that we've had, I know the NCAA has ruled some athletes ineligible, and in fact, it was adult guardians or others who were engaging on behalf of the athletes. Sometimes the athlete had very little involvement, just to make sure they're protected and to the best extent we can.
For instance, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
I would, Senator Bell, you might look at line 334, section 54.1-531, prohibited conduct. An athlete agent may not intentionally give a student athlete, or if the student athlete is a minor, a parent or guardian of the student athlete materially false or misleading information. So it does have within it references to the conduct of an agent with the parents of the athlete.
Thank you.
All right, are there further questions?
Chairman,
Yes, Senator Ruff.
If the agent is from outside the state and the athlete is from outside the state but it's playing in Virginia, what is the penalty going to be that we're going to be able to actually get at that person if they don't register as an agent?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's almost precisely what this is trying to do. If you want to engage with a Virginia athlete, you must register.
But what is the penalty if they do not?
The penalty is, I shall find that for you.
It was both on lines 380, there's a criminal penalty and a civil penalty.
There it is. Thank you very much.
And all right, but if they don't come to Virginia, we just are on the hook. I mean, we can't really enforce it.
Well, I'm not sure that's right, Senator. There are ways to file lawsuits against people in other states. Make it more complicated, my quick answer to you would be, agent from outside of state comes in and we find them to be engaged in conduct that violates this statute and is therefore actionable. One could chase them to another state and sue them under this law in that state and ask that state to enforce this law.
Mr. Chairman, I'm agreeing with what you're trying to do. I'm just trying to figure out if it's long distance, whether we're going to actually catch them. But thank you.
All right, Delegate Sullivan, I assume you'll be playing in the basketball game tomorrow night with the hope that an agent's going to spot you on the court?
I will be watching intently from the stands.
You and me both.
My knees don't play basketball anymore.
Okay. All right, are there any further questions? All right. What's that? And this does have to go to finance. So this would be a motion to.
I think so.
Motion, yeah. It does, so.
All right. I'm happy to go see my friends at finance. It's just there this morning.
Yes. All right, so is there a motion to report and re-refer to finance? Okay, is there a second? All right. We have a motion and a second on reporting and re-referring to finance. Is there any further discussion in the committee? All right, we will vote on the board.
Ayes 12, no 0, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate it.
We'll see you in finance, so. All right, next is Delegate Subramanian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill number is HB 1003.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This bill is a bill basically to switch two emergency management related boards from the technology agency to the emergency management agency. There's a number of reasons to do that, but the main concern here is with the way these agencies are being reorganized, it makes a lot of sense to have these two boards under the management of VDEM rather than VITA.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron on this bill, House Bill 1003? All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Joshua Hesslinger from the Virginia Information Technologies Agency. The administration and both affected agencies strongly support this bill. It makes a lot of sense. VDEM was not picked at random. They really are a good fit to take these areas. They're already involved. The agency head of VDEM is the head of the 911 board already. So it makes sense going forward to move them, and the agencies have thanked Delegate Subramanian for bringing the bill to do that for us.
All right, thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Dylan Taylor with VDEM. We stand ready to ensure a seamless transition and to engage the stakeholders further on this.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone who's in opposition to the bill?
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Donovan.
I have localities that are concerned about them not participating in the board, and the fact that the board may be able to levy unfunded mandates in those localities. And so is there a way to create positions on the board that have representation of localities? Or is that an amendment that's happened since this concern was raised?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I would tell the senator that maybe that's a separate legislation that we could consider in the future, but this would mostly just be about switching these boards to a new agency.
All right, do you want to respond?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Senator Donovan. There is separate legislation that I believe has already moved through both houses to add 2 locality GIS members to the VGen Advisory Board. Right. So that is happening through separate legislation. And the 911 Services Board already includes a lot of locality members, predominantly representatives of locality emergency services organizations. So both boards will have locality representation later this year.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this bill? All right. We have the bill before us here. It's before the committee. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Move to report. Second.
All right.
Second.
The motion to report and a second. Any further discussion in the committee? All right. We will vote on the board.
Ayes 12, no 0, 1 abstention.
All right, the bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. All right, Delegate Jones.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I would draw your attention to House Bill 921. This bill simply requires any housing authority that's required to submit an application to the Department of Housing and Urban Development to demolish, liquidate, or otherwise dispose of a housing project serve notice to the residents of such actions at least 12 months prior to any application submission date. I would also note that in that period, the housing authority is prohibited from increasing rent, changing the terms of the rental agreement, and giving or evicting a tenant unless they are violating the lease or violating the law otherwise. And it's actually substantially similar. My bill has 12 months, but it's substantially similar to Senator McClellan's Senate Bill 708 that passed out, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
All right. It says
it is
the same.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Donovan, it's exactly the same bill, except my period is 12 months and Senator McClellan's period is 9 months.
Yes, Senator Donovan.
Did you conform Senator McClellan's bill in the House?
Yes, we did.
You?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Donovan, we did, and it passed a couple of days ago under the 12 months.
Mr. Chairman, I'm inclined to conform his bill to Senator McClellan so that she has a say. Have you spoken with Senator McClellan, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, Senator,
Yes.
I have. She was comfortable with our 12-month period.
Okay.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I move we report.
All right, there's a motion to report.
Second.
All right, a second. Any further discussion?
Vote yes.
All right. All right. And then if there's no further discussion, then we'll vote on the board.
As 12, no zero, one abstention.
All right, that bill is reported.
Thank the committee.
Thank you. All right, Delegate Carol Foy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have two bills. Would you like to hear 437 first?
It's up to you.
Okay. We can do House Bill 437, Disposition of Surplus Materials. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here on this bill, which will empower small businesses owned by service-disabled veterans and veteran service organizations by creating opportunities to purchase the capital needed to succeed in the workforce by allowing these entities to be able to have access to purchase surplus material that's scheduled to be sold prior to public sale or auction. And so my bill just allows for active duty owned businesses and their military spouses to have access to the surplus material. Surplus material is property owned by the state that we no longer need, such as computer, desk, chairs, et cetera, to help with as a resource for these new businesses.
All right.
Mr. Chairman. We passed or Delegate McGuire's bill, wasn't it the same thing? Took property out and...
I'm not that familiar with Delegate McGuire's bill. My bill is for active military-owned businesses and their military spouse-owned businesses. I don't believe his is directly.
Council, you have any information for us?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bills are different. The Delegate McGuire's bill deals with giving computer supplies, so specifically computer surplus, to United States military. Yeah. So it's similar in that it's military related. This would apply to military spouses in particular, which is not in Delegate McGuire's bill, although there is some overlap with the active military.
All right. Are there other questions of the patron? All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right. The bill is before us. All right. We got a motion and to report and a second to that. Any further discussion in the committee? We will vote on the board on the motion to report.
As 13, no zero.
All right, that bill is reported. And then you have another bill, I believe?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The second bill is House Bill 827, the Pregnancy Discrimination Bill. What this bill does is that in Virginia, you can be terminated for requesting pregnancy accommodations. So, for example, if a woman's in her 7th month of pregnancy, if she's standing at a cash register, she needs to maybe sit down at the register due to high blood pressure, swelling ankles, whatever the case may be. She can actually be terminated just for requesting accommodations. So what this bill does is it allows for accommodations to be provided if they can be. There are a number of exemptions, such as if it would present to be an undue hardship on the employer. So if they don't have the room, the money, or the staffing to be able to accommodate, then they don't have to. And so I believe there is an amendment in the nature of a substitute, which basically removes punitive damages from the bill.
All right. Sure, Senator Donovan.
Mr. Chairman, just for council, does this conform her bill to Senator McClellan's as it passed out of the Senate?
Mr. Chairman, I believe it does, except for one section which is removed.
Mr. Chairman, the section that is not in this bill that is in Senator McClellan's bill deals with the duties of the Division of Human Rights. So by removing that, it should remove any fiscal impact because it is not imposing any further duties on the Division of Human Rights.
All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, further
Yes,
question?
Senator Donovan.
Did you conform Senator McClellan's bill to your bill in the House?
Yes.
Okay, and have you discussed this with Senator McClellan?
Mr. Chairman, I would say to the senator, yes. We have had conversations about it, yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, follow-up
Yes, Senator
question.
Donovan.
Is it consensus with you and Senator McClellan that this form of the bill, absent that paragraph that was in her bill, should go forward, or is there not consensus on that yet?
Mr. Chairman, I would say to the senator that yes, there is consensus, that there is peace in the valley, and this works for everyone, and we're both in agreement.
All right, thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of the bill? Yes.
My name is Nicole Tortorello. I'm the Women's Rights Advocacy Council at the ACLU of Virginia. We've been working with both Senator McClellan and Delegate Carol Foy, and we strongly support this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions if that's helpful. Thank you.
All right, anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone who wishes, yes, Senator
Mr. Chairman, this deals with only employers who have 5 or more than 5?
Yes, correct.
All right, and there, Delegate, you mentioned that there were exceptions for various reasons. Who is the determinant of those exceptions? If it's a small business, it's marginal, but got 6 employees.
Yes.
Do they go out of business, or do they have? How do they deal with that exemption?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would say to the senator, one aspect of the bill, which I think is most desirable, is that it says that there has to be a formal sit-down. There has to be a coming to the table of both parties, the person requesting the accommodations and the employer, to discuss the accommodations and the reasonableness or the possibility of those accommodations being made. If that cannot be resolved, then the exceptions are that if it was to get to court, they will look at the amount of money that the employer has, the amount of employees, the extreme hardship that would cause the business to actually make those accommodations. All of those things would be reviewed and analyzed if it was to get to court. But our bill actually has a provision in there mandating that there is a formal sit-down between the pregnant person asking for the accommodations and the employer before it even gets to that point.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I have
yes.
a follow-up question.
Senator Donovan.
I note in here that there is the ability for an employee for whom the court finds in their favor to be awarded attorney fees. Is there the same provision for business in whose interest the court finds in their favor to get the attorney fees back? These are small businesses. That can be an expensive prospect.
Mr. Chairman, I would say to the senator that no, it's one way. The idea for having it for the person who petitions the court for the reasonable accommodations that were requested, no resolution being made, and they had to go to the court, is that it's cost prohibitive for a lot of the women who have to make these type of complaints. And oftentimes they have difficulty getting counsel because this isn't usually some type of contingency fee agreement. This is usually a retainer. And so sometimes $10,000 to $15,000 have to be deposited with the attorney before any type of petition or complaint is filed, which makes this type of remedy an avenue cost prohibitive oftentimes for women to even go this route. So by having the attorney fees in there, this has hopefully the impact of allowing attorneys to take these type of cases knowing that their costs will be recovered even though the person that they are representing might only make $7.25 an hour and those accommodations weren't being made.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up question.
Senator,
I certainly I support that, but by the same token, a business of 5 may also have limited resources for legal fees to defend themselves and have no choice to defend. And it seems to me that there should be parity on the playing field, that if indeed the court finds in favor of the business, that they too would be able to realize their attorney fees. And that makes it so that we're more confident that spurious complaints aren't made because the scale is weighted in the favor of another. So, Mr. Chairman, my follow-up would be, would you consider an amendment to that end?
Mr. Chairman, I would say to the senator, I would consider that a friendly amendment if the word is may and not shall, and leave it up to the judge's discretion whether or not attorney fees for the business is appropriate in that case.
Mr. Chairman, I move that amendment with may.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the amendment, which is that they may be awarded the fees in that situation to the business. Counsel, do you sort of have the language? You got the concept at least?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think we have the concept, but we'll have to work on the language.
All right. Is there discussion on that amendment? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right, that amendment is adopted. All right, are there any further discussion within the committee here? All right, is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Report as amended.
All right. And this one does have to go to finance. So it'd be,
Refer to finance.
so the motion is to report as amended and re-refer to finance and appropriations. Any further discussion in the committee? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no zero.
All right, the bill is reported, and we'll see you in finance, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
All right, thank you. Next is Delegate Reed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I have two bills, I believe, before you, which are House Bill 719 and 720. So if you'd like, I could do them in order. And do 719 first?
Sure, doesn't make any difference.
Okay, House Bill 719 is a paperwork reduction effort. The proposed legislation would require that all agency publications provided to the General Assembly and other agencies be provided in a PDF form or some other type of industry standard rather than a print form. Departments, delegates, and senators may also request a paper form if they so desire. The goal of the legislation is to actually modernize communication between the legislature and the agencies and reduce paper waste, save money, and also thereby reduce the need for kind of fancy pamphlets and reports. As an example, I would like to share with you, this is what we get from the Virginia retirement system. And there are several hundred copies. I think the number that I have here is 200 copies are produced, or about 60,000 pages. And I'm not sure if all of us take the time to read it, but there's probably information in here that we would like to be able to search and find out. And if it were provided to us as a PDF or some type of soft copy that was also text searchable, then we could probably actually go through this and make some additional valuable decisions about the information that's in there. So that's basically the gist of the bill, Mr. Chairman and committee members.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? All right, anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill?
Move to report.
All right, we have a race to report here. So there's a motion and a second to report. Or is there further discussion in the committee? All right, I'll vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no zero.
All right, that one is reported, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Next up is House Bill 720, and this is a change in the code to address homeowners association political sign rules. And I will apologize up front if you received a whole lot of emails early on about the intent of this legislation, but it has been changed since then. The proposed legislation now would simply require homeowners associations to notify prospective homebuyers of rules regarding political signage. Currently in the code, that is not required. This bill would not actually damage any existing covenants or direct homeowners associations to change any existing covenants. All it does is require disclosure of their rules as it relates to political signs. And you can see that this is in the actual language of the bill itself. It is after number 11. It creates a new number 12. And in working with counsel on this, the description for the notification for disclosure related to the flag is in number 11, and political signs are now in number 12. And that's the extent of what the bill does, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
All right, are there any questions? Yes, Senator Ruff.
We just voted on that. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. That might save a lot. But, all right, are there further questions of the patron? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, the bill's before the committee.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to report the bill, either PDF or however you're.
However, the chair and the committee would prefer, I
That's
would
right.
accept the
Any further
outcome.
discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no zero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members.
Thank you very much. All right, next is Delegate Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I believe I have 3 bills that were on your docket for this afternoon. And I don't know whether 2 of them have already been addressed through administrative action, 624 and 1300. All right. So the only bill that I have.
Both of those have been addressed, so.
Thank you,
You're down
Mr.
to one
Chairman.
bill.
All right, 1301 is a bill that is coming over for the first time from the House to the Senate in a while, but is something that might be familiar to you as members of the Senate.
Right.
It would create the Office of Children's Ombudsman. We have amended this throughout the legislative process to model it now after Michigan's Office of Children's Ombudsman. Part of that is because we've been able to get great insight on how to make sure that this can be implemented and be workable from our new Deputy Commissioner of DSS, Nanette Bowler, who has intimate knowledge of this office during her time in Michigan, and saw its effects positively on being able to have more accountability and oversight for our child serving and child placing agencies here in the Commonwealth. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm more than happy to walk through the bill, describe it, but this essentially is a way to create an independent office for promoting child welfare, and also marries very closely with the JLARC report that came out in 2018 for improving Virginia's foster care system. This was a recommendation of the JLARC report, was to create this office. It has been funded in the House budget. JLARC is also here as well to help answer any technical questions as well.
All right, are there questions of the patron?
Oh, sorry, hold on. But before I put the cart before the horse, so we do have a substitute that needs to be considered as well.
All right, we got a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. Any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. With the substitutes before us now.
So, Mr. Chairman, the substitute, it makes a couple of changes to try and reduce the volume of cases potentially that this office could be working. So we change the requirement to review certain cases that might get reviewed by the Child Fatality Review Board from a shall to a may. It's our understanding that other states that have this office, sometimes with the shall language, have found themselves preoccupied with having to do child fatality reviews when we already have a review board who does that. There are differences from how an ombudsman would do it from our review board, but essentially we want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts here, that we're trying to address new issues and chronic issues that are going with our child serving and child placing agencies.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? All right, we got a motion to report, and doesn't say finance on my sheet, so. All right.
It does.
What'd you say? Yeah, that's what I would have thought, though. It doesn't? Okay. All right.
That does beg the question, how is this funded?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, we have line item funding in the House budget.
But we do not in the Senate budget, so that is an issue.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the bill be reported and referred to finance, because if we don't do it, then it's dead.
Yeah.
I think I was going to interject, not to try and interfere with proceedings in the higher body, but yeah,
Right.
I would have, in this case, no problem with this bill being referred to
Safer.
finance.
All right,
Yes.
we have a motion to report and re-refer to Finance and Appropriations. Is there any further discussion on the committee? All right, we will vote on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Ayes 13, no zero.
Delegate McQuinn.
Mr. Chairman, I'm doing the bill for her.
All right.
Because she and I had the same bill. It's similar to Senate Bill 881, and there is a substitute that would make them identical.
Second.
We have a substitute. This is on the cemeteries and graves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to adopt the substitute?
Move the substitute.
All right, second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. Any further discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, the substitute is adopted.
And Mr. Chairman, if you recall what House Bill 1523 and similar to Senate Bill 881, and the substitute would make them identical. It creates the Historical African American Cemeteries and Graves Fund and provides that any funds that are appropriated to the Department of Historic Resources but not used for the maintenance of graves, in particular the listed historical African American cemeteries, shall be deposited into the fund. And what happens with the substitute is that portions of Delegate McQuinn's bill that were not in my bill have been put into the substitute, and portions of my bill that were not in hers have been put into the substitute. So that is what makes them identical.
All right, so with this substitute, we now have bills that will be identical.
Yes.
In most situations. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of this bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Joshua Sachs, Deputy Secretary of Natural Resources. The administration supports this bill.
All right. Anyone else in favor of the bill? Anyone wish to speak in opposition to the bill? All right. We have a motion to report. Is there a second? All right, we have a second. Any discussion? All right, we will vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no zero.
All right, the bill is reported. Delegate Ward. You've been hiding there all day, so.
Not hiding. Okay, Mr. Chair and
Yes.
members of the committee, I have two bills, and I'll go in order. House Bill 393, Landlord and Tenants' Rights.
All right,
What this bill does, it calls for landlord to provide a list of rights and responsibilities in clearly written and easily understood language. The Department of Housing and Community Development would convene stakeholder groups, including landlords, property managers, and tenants, to develop a list of the rights and responsibilities that are easily understood. The reason for this is because Virginia has a history of very high eviction rates. As a matter of fact, research shows that half of the 10 largest population cities in the nation, Virginia is one of the highest with evictions. And right here in this area, even in the city of Richmond, Richmond had the second highest eviction rate, evicting 6,300 individuals. And I just want you to think that there is nothing sadder than seeing a young mother out on the curb with her children and everything that they own, and then know that it didn't have to happen if they had only known their rights. And the landlord also. And we're asking that both come together, come up with a list of rights and responsibilities so they would know the process, so that individual won't jump so quickly, or the landlord to act so harshly if there are other things that could take place before the person is evicted. And that's all the bill does, is just provide a list.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, are there questions for the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
Could council tell us what the differences are with Senator McClellan's bill? So SB 707.
Mr. Chairman, I believe there's just a one-word difference between the two bills. One second. So what I'm looking at doesn't have the line numbers, but in subsection G of section, sorry,
That would be lines 142, 143, et cetera.
of section 55-1-1204, there's a one-word difference on the second to last line of that subsection where it says alleged lease violation. One bill says unless, the other one says until. Delegate Ward's bill says until. And then, of course, the
And which
senator's bill
section, which
has a
section, this
clause.
is at 55.1-1204?
1204,
And which subsection?
G.
G.
The very last sentence, however, the landlord shall not file or maintain an action against the tenant in a court of law for any alleged lease violation. Delegate Ward's bill says until he has provided the tenant with the statement of tenant rights and responsibilities. The senator's bill says unless he has provided the tenant. And the senator's bill has the clause that y'all put on.
All right. Yes. Do you want to have your bill conformed, changing the until into unless, or do you have a particular preference for one word over the other?
Mine says until.
Yours says until, and Senator McClellan said unless. You can phone a friend if you want, so.
The friend says until, because
Until.
that's what we worked out with the stakeholders.
With the stickers, okay. All right, and do you know whether Senator McClellan's bill has been acted on in the House yet?
Mr. Chairman, it has.
Has it?
Yes, I believe so. On Tuesday, I think it was. It was conformed, if I am correct.
It was conformed to mine.
Delegate
Yes.
Ward's bill.
So
All
they
right,
removed the
well
clause
then-
and made it until.
All right. Well, for now, then we'll just leave it alone as until, so. All right, and those who want to speak in favor of the bill, please come forward, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Christy Marrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we support the bill. We thank the delegate for bringing it. And the significance, in case you're wondering, of the until instead of the unless is that the idea is until the tenant is provided with the statement of rights, the landlord cannot file an action against that person in court. But as soon as they do provide that statement of rights, then that opens the door to enforcement. Thank you.
All right, next.
Erin Barton with the Realtors, and we support this bill.
All right, thank you.
Brian Gordon with the Apartment and Office Building Association and the Virginia Apartment and Management Association. We thank the delegate for working with us, and we also support the bill.
All right, thank you. Anyone that wishes to speak in opposition? All right, the bill is before us.
Move to report.
All right, there's a motion, well, this one has to go to finance, so we need a motion to report and re-refer to finance.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion to report and re-refer to finance and appropriations. Any further discussion on the issue? All right, vote on the board, so.
Ayes 12, no zero.
All right, that bill is reported.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Another bill, House Bill 394, and it is to establish the position of the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and codify that position as a permanent member of the governor's cabinet. Right now, the governor has appointed someone to serve in this position, and that person and those working in that with that individual have really done yeoman's work in identifying some embarrassingly racist statutes in our code. And not just that, as a matter of fact, there is a booklet, I wish I had brought it with me, that really has an example of everything that's been in the Code of Virginia that we are working hard to identify. But not just that, we recognize that it's an ongoing effort. So that position would also be to effectively address the disparities that have historically and systematically impacted communities of color and other underrepresented communities across the Commonwealth. And that's the purpose for this position. And so although the governor may no longer be serving, we want to make sure that this position is still available and is still a part of our government, because we've had 400 years of not even looking at some of the things that we're doing. We need to start watching to make sure we don't continue to make the same mistakes. And that's the purpose for this position.
Thank you for that. Did we have a bill in the Senate on this particular? No, okay. All right. Are there any questions of the patron on this bill? All right, anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, the bill does need to go to finance.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to report and re-refer to finance and appropriations, and a second to that motion. Is there further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 12, no zero.
All right, the bill is reported and re-referred to finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Yeah. All right, next on my list here, I have Delegate Corey. I don't think she's here. Huh? Okay. Then next is Delegate Helmer.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, speaking to the bill.
Sure.
So House Bill 1269 is to assist the Veteran Service Foundation. It's an administration bill. The Veteran Service Foundation is an advisory board that raises funds to supplement the services provided by the Department of Veteran Services and the Department of Veterans Affairs at the federal level.
Right.
These are invaluable programs for veterans, and this bill, importantly, we've given the board approval to hire an executive director. 1269 is going to allow them to approve the appointments of needed advisors and volunteers to assist the executive director in managing the foundation. I hope it will be the will of the committee to report this.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman, Delegate, it was amended in the House.
Yes, sir.
And that struck out some piece of that language. What did that accomplish?
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the senator that my understanding, and I have the agency here as well, is that the purpose of that was to make sure that we were, instead of subjecting to board approval, was to subject it to Department of Veterans Services approval. That was what what was accomplished.
Mr. Chairman, the board, what board?
Of the Veterans
Foundation board?
of the foundation, yes, sir.
So you're taking the foundation out of the equation, and is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, for the volunteer approval. So on line 60, yes, sir. Go ahead. Thank you to my friend at the Department of Veterans Service. So it basically clarifies that there are employees of DVS on the board right there, so statutorily they're required to, so it's just technical clarification that's required to make it work.
I want to hear
all right
directly out of it. Yeah. He's a good friend, so
Sir, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Ward, Assistant Secretary of Veterans and Defense Affairs, here today, sir, on behalf of the Veterans Services Foundation. So what happens with the amendments in the House was that it just simply removed the language that made DVS employees that are already statutorily required to assist the Veteran Services Foundation, removed the foundation from having to approve the agency's representatives helping the foundation. That's a very convoluted way of basically saying that the DVS is going to provide those people anyway to participate and to assist as they currently are doing. We did not want to make them subject to the foundation's approval doing that.
Thank you.
Chairman, why, don't run away. Why are
Never.
foundation members getting in touch with me and asking me to reject that amendment that was put on in the House?
I can't speak for the entire foundation, sir. What I can say is that from an agency's perspective, the executive director of VSF and then also the acting commissioner for the Department of Veteran Services, it was simply language that we shouldn't have offered. It was technical in nature, and I'm not certain why they're bringing your concerns, because we have not heard any.
Any further questions?
If there are no further questions, I'll make the motion that we reinsert that language on line 60 after foundation. It says subject to board approval and.
All right, we have a motion of a line amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that this line amendment be adopted. Is there any discussion among the committee here? All right, all in favor of the line amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, the line amendment is adopted, so. All right, are there further questions of the patron? All right, and.
Unless there's, if it's over time, a motion.
Sure.
I would move to report.
All right.
As amended.
Move to report as amended is the motion. Okay, the motion is to report as amended. It's been seconded. Is there further discussion among the committee? All right, we will vote on the board.
Ayes 12, no 0.
All right, it is reported as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
All right, next is Delegate Levine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First bill I'd like to address is HB 1049, if I could. HB 1049 is a very big bill and a very small bill at the same time. It's a big bill because it affects hundreds of thousands of Virginians who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. It adds non-discrimination provisions on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in some 70-odd places in the code. It's also a very small bill. It's a small bill in that it doesn't actually change anything else in the code. It doesn't change how non-discrimination clauses are structured. It doesn't change any remedies. All it does is add sexual orientation and gender identity anywhere you find other non-discrimination clauses on the basis of race, religion, national origin, gender, and things like that. So that's the heart of what the bill does. As I said, it basically says to Virginians, if you're LGBT, you can't be discriminated against in the same provisions in the code where you can't be discriminated against on the basis of race, sex, religion, national origin, etc. So I think it's actually a pretty simple bill in that respect. Happy to answer any questions. If not, I know there are folks who want to testify about it.
So this little simple 39-page bill, is that what you're saying?
It's a simple 39-page bill because all it does is add sexual orientation, gender identity, some 70-odd places. But the concept is actually really simple.
All right, are there questions of the patron? All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, good evening. My name is V. Lamnick. I'm the Executive Director of Equality Virginia, and we support this bill. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else to speak in favor? Is there anyone in opposition to the bill?
Good evening, members of the committee. Jeff Caruso with the Virginia Catholic Conference. I think the committee is familiar with our broader perspective here. we affirm the dignity of all people. At the same time, we also affirm the right of religious organizations to follow their deeply and sincerely held tenets when they provide employment, housing, and services. There are many different items that are covered in House Bill 1049, and it does have a much further reach than the non-discrimination bill SB 868 that you passed earlier this session. In the interest of time, I'd just like to address two sections, and they are 2.2-4201 and 2.2-4311 that deal specifically with public contracts. These two sections add sexual orientation and gender identity as non-discrimination criteria in employment for state contractors. This impacts faith-based organizations that have the beliefs that we do about marriage and sexuality when they engage in state partnerships, which Catholic Charities does. And I've brought some people here from Catholic Charities that can speak to that. Before they speak, I do want to hand out, I think there is some simple language that could rectify this. So I do want to hand that out and suggest that there is a way to address this concern. We don't have anybody that right now is offering the amendment, but nevertheless, I would like to just hand this out as an illustration of what could be done here.
Where's the amendment in the code?
Section, which section in the code are you referring to with it, where the amendment is placed?
So it would be in two places. The first place would be in 2.2-4201, and that would begin on line 217 in the bill. And then the second place would be 2.2-4311, which begins on line 336 of the code. And what I would propose adding in both places, after the non-discrimination clause, adding an additional clause that says, except that a contractor that is a religious organization may require that all applicants and employees conform to the religious tenets of such organization. And what that would do, if we added that in those two sections, would be to allow us to follow our religious tenets, whether we hire people of our own faith or hire people of different faiths. They would be, conforming to conduct that's consistent with our religious tenets. That would also be consistent with the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. They have a religious exemption clause in there, and they do have this two-pronged approach that includes religious tenets. So I don't want to hold up the testimony from others, but I do want to hand this around just in case folks would like to look at that, and I'd like to provide it to the patron as well. Thank you very much.
All right, next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Jeff. My name is Art Bennett. I'm the president and CEO of Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Arlington. Virginia has two dioceses, Richmond and Arlington. We're kind of the 21 cities in the northern part of the Commonwealth, 21 counties and 7 cities. And we're Catholic Charity, but we serve anyone who really has problems or trouble. We're trying there to help the poorest of the poor. That's our mission. We're a little concerned about HB 1049 because it might jeopardize our ability to help people, and it might leave a lot of the people that we serve in a precarious position receiving less support. And of the 21 programs, we only want to talk about one tonight. One is our refugee program. We have been providing services for refugees the longest in the Commonwealth since 1974, and it brought over 30,000 refugees to the Commonwealth. And this is a contract with Virginia, the state of Virginia, and so we're concerned about that. So I just want to introduce some of my colleagues who are going to talk about the work that Catholic Charities has done. First one I want to introduce is Laurel Collins. She's Associate Director of Self-Sufficiency for Catholic Charities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. So MRS, Migration and Refugee Services, is the largest resettlement agency in the Commonwealth, with 3 offices, a staff of 25, and over 150 volunteers. So as Art mentioned, we've resettled 30,000 since 1975. Currently, we welcome between 400 and 700 refugees per year. Our work begins with securing housing and meeting clients at the airport. We bring them to furnished accommodations and ensure that basic needs are met. Through our 5 federally funded state-administered grants, we help adults secure employment. We assist kids with school enrollment and social and academic adjustment. We connect families with volunteers, tutors, and mentors. We provide school supplies, backpacks, winter coats, and clothes. We also help refugee seniors with becoming U.S. citizens, learning English, and connecting with local senior centers. These programs are holistic and transformative and help our clients to integrate and thrive. Most of our clients are special immigrant visa holders from Afghanistan. These folks work directly with our special forces and the U.S. government in Afghanistan. And due to their service to our country, their lives are in peril. So they're offered a safe haven here in the U.S.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to be rude, but frankly, I'm not sure this is relating to the bill.
Disagree. This is services that they provide to the Commonwealth and a contract in the Commonwealth that they're afraid will be compromised by this bill.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see that she's making a point. She's describing what they're doing. She's not describing how it's going to be impacted by the bill.
And I think I can cut this conversation short if I could give a 1 minute.
No, don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody has their say, so.
Okay, thank you. So these clients bring their skills, talents, and linguistic capacity. They make great contributions to our communities. We support them with integration and self-sufficiency. And without our programs and services, these clients would not be able to achieve integration and self-sufficiency as quickly as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I hate to interrupt, but I wanted to ask the witness a question sincerely. I wanted to first thank you for your work with immigrants and refugees, but this is really a sincere question. If you had, like a lot in Bosnia and some of the other places in Eastern Europe, they were targeting gay people, even facing death. And I was just curious, do you not, from this bill, you couldn't discriminate. Is your hope that you would want to turn anyone away, or?
Yeah, that's my question too. It's exactly my question.
Can I defer to my colleagues? I mean, we serve everybody. We provide resettlement services. We're contracted to do so, and.
I'm glad you do. I'm glad you do, and I thank you for that. I just wasn't sure how the bill would impact that, but I thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
My question is kind of a little different, but similar. I also applaud the work that you do, and I greatly appreciate that work. If a refugee were to come and they were gay, would you still support them?
We don't. I mean, we serve everybody of any faith, any background. And I mean, we don't ask that question of anybody. We're contracted to provide services.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Donovan.
So the answer is yes. You would support them because you don't have any discrimination against anybody for whom you're caring. Yes.
All right. Are there others who wish to speak? If so, please do so quickly so it won't be here all night. So.
Thank you, Chairman, committee members. My name is Balaina Lopiso. I am a former refugee who was served by Catholic Charities 14 years ago. I also worked with different capacities for Catholic Charities. Currently, I'm the program director for the refugee program. What I really want to stress is Catholic Charities as agency is a good alternative providing services with limited resources, mobilizing resources from the parishioners and also parishes. And it's a strong agency providing different services for refugees. So this bill might limit our presence providing services for greater community of refugees. In addition to that, also, really, there is a minimal support from federal or state government for these programs. The majority of the support comes from the community, from the churches, from volunteers who are supporting the program. It's also limiting those part of the church, the community who are eager to support the newcomers. In addition to that, what makes Catholic Charities different from other service providers is there are also additional services that can be accessed by new refugees if they are supported by Catholic Charities. So just I want to stress those things. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just a little confused. Mr. Chairman.
Where are we here? Oh, Delegate Hashmi. Senator Hashmi.
I'm just a little confused by the last speaker's statements. I don't understand how this bill is going to impact the services that you provide. You've indicated that you do not discriminate with the individuals that you serve. So if you could just clarify, sir, how the bill impacts your work, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'd like to clarify on behalf of Catholic Charities. This would not, what we're seeking the exemption for is not with regard to services, it's with regard to employment. What these two sections say is that your employment criteria, the non-discrimination criteria in employment for a state contractor is that they cannot discriminate on the basis of things that are already in the law, plus adding sexual orientation and gender identity. When adding those two terms, we see the need for additional language to say that in our employment practices, we may also require that all applicants and employees conform to the religious tenets of our organization. And we think that would ensure that in our employment practices, we could still follow our belief, for example, that marriage is the union of a man and a woman. And with that, then we'd be eligible for the contracts and it wouldn't jeopardize these contracts. So it's not the services, it's the employment piece.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's the contracting piece. Is that you would be excluded from a contract based on the values that you have in employment being not aligned with this language in the bill as it's presented without a religious exception for who you employ. And, and that's the issue. It's the contract restrictions at this place is that you would like to continue your fruitful contract in refugee services and others, but you're afraid that your beliefs would obstruct that if this language goes into the bill.
That's correct, and we think that extra clause there that just says that we can require all applicants and employees to conform to the religious tenets of our organization.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
A point of clarification, because I think I thought I understood this before, but I think I'm now confused. So to be clear, you want to be able to discriminate on the basis of being gay, and the issue therefore is if you're able to discriminate, then you can't get those contracts. Is that the issue?
The issue is that the terms sexual orientation and gender identity have been construed very broadly by courts to include conduct. So, the religious tenets of our organization would be that marriage is the union of a man and a woman, and we would expect that employees of our organization would adhere to that standard of conduct. And if this language is not added, then the way that courts have construed the term sexual orientation and gender identity, this would take us out of the ability to continue to provide
Mr.
those
Chairman.
contracts.
Yes, Senator Hashmi.
I just have a real problem with that line of argument. As a Commonwealth, we're committed to non-discrimination, and we have recently just passed bills that secure non-discrimination against individuals in our LGBT community. If we strike this particular language, we are therefore, as a Commonwealth, saying that we are willing to engage or allow discrimination of certain individuals. And so I have a issue with that argument that you just presented.
Mr. Chairman, may I just respond briefly? Okay, so, we're not proposing striking any language. We're proposing leaving all the language in and just adding a clarification that says that we can still follow the religious tenets of our organization in our hiring practices.
All right, while we hear from the rest of the people who want to speak, please try not to repeat things that have been said already or will be said by others, so that we try to get, keep things moving and be able to get out of here at a reasonable hour, so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman
Yes.
and members of the committee of the state of Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm so happy to talk to you about today a subject that's both personal and also professional for me. I came here in the state of Virginia as a refugee myself 2 decades ago, and I have chosen the state of Virginia simply because, as Larry Sabato said, that is the mother of American presidents, but it has never been pregnant. But in addition to that, it's a very diverse state where there are a lot of opportunities for employment, and also there's a welcoming community. I now work with, it so happens that I now work also with refugees, and it has been that for the last 5-6 years. And I noticed that there's so many refugees that are coming in America today are still coming for the same opportunities and making the same choices that my family and I made.
Go for it.
So, what I was going to say is that today's refugees are professionals that are coming from, as my colleague mentioned, from Afghanistan mainly. And when they come here, they become self-sufficient very quickly and become part of the society, contributing to the economy of the state, and also becoming, along the way, they, adjusting their status to citizenship. But the work that you see and, the success that you always hear from the refugees comes from what's done behind the scene. It's not only that that we have grants from the state and also from the federal governments, but we are, connected with a large community, mainly from the churches around the state of Virginia, and also there are employers that are supporting our programs. We have also other faith groups that support refugees. And basically, what I'm referring to is that if it would not have been for the faith-based organizations such as Catholic charities, there's no way that refugees would have become self-sufficient so soon. Lately, there were countries from the Scandinavians that came here in the United States just simply to study the American model of resettlement, and they found out, yes, the United States has a free market economy that allows and gives opportunities to people, but also, Americans inherently have, families and friends that are immigrants, and they're very open to welcoming refugees. But the biggest part that they found out that why refugees assimilate very well here in the U.S. and become very successful was because the work that the faith-based organizations such as Catholic charities do. We get donations from the parishes. We get volunteers from the other faith-based organizations. So it's very critical. What we do is not only that what we get from the government, from the federal and the state government, but also there are a lot more resources that come from the community. And I think that the success of our clients and the success of the immigrants here in the state of Virginia is mainly from the community that's connected to the faith-based organizations.
All right, we have a question from Senator Reeves.
So, and I'm not sure who can answer this. Maybe someone from the Catholic Diocese can answer this question. But my understanding is the State Department works with the Catholic charities, let's say the Diocese of Arlington, right? And they come in, and they come into this country, and they do the majority of placements, like in my district in the city of Fredericksburg, they come through and they're placed that way. So is this bill saying that because of your fundamental principles as a Catholic diocese of orientation and gender, because you all believe and that's how you believe, under this bill 217 says the contractor will not discriminate, those are counter to your beliefs as an organization, you would no longer be able to comply with that, so therefore you would no longer be able to be have a contract with the government to do placement of immigrants?
This is just one program, and it's not so much, like Jeff said, Jeff Crusoe said, it's not so much the helping the refugees, it's being able to hire people with the same values that we have in the Catholic Church to be able to help the refugees. So Jeff used the example of of marriage. The Catholic Church has a different view of marriage maybe than what's being proposed here. Those are fundamental to us in our ability to provide services. So with kind of an exemption as a religious organization, we can continue doing what we're doing. It's just in the hiring, that's where the issue is, sir. Yeah. For example, many of these people here, they're not only not Catholic, they're not even Christians, work for them, but they have the same values that we have at Catholic Charity. That's why they're so successful at helping the refugees, because they have the same values. So if somebody had a different value related to marriage or whatever, that would be a more serious thing. It would be hard for us to integrate. So.
Senator Bell.
If I could ask the gentleman if you could return to the microphone. How long have you been performing the refugee services?
Since 74, 75.
Continuously?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Governor McAuliffe signed an executive order in 2017 effectively doing what this bill codifies. So you've been providing the service since 2017. Your argument is that if this bill passes, you won't be successful or hurt you. Have you not been successful since 2017?
We've been very successful.
Then I think that just goes against your entire argument. This is going to hurt you.
Well, we've been, if I could just add, sir, part of the reason we've been successful is because of our beliefs as Christians, as Catholics. I mean, we serve anybody. Nobody outserves the immigrants and the refugees in the Christian church. Nobody. If, however, we had to compromise our Christian beliefs, that's when it's hard for us. What animates us and propels us is our beliefs. If we had to compromise them in a serious way, that could impact our ability to perform the service.
I understand what you're saying, but since 2017, you've been operating under an executive order which prohibits you from discriminating on this basis. And has it compromised your beliefs? Have you been unable to perform?
We've been able to perform.
So I think it invalidates your argument.
Well, can I address that?
Briefly.
Okay, very briefly. So in the under Executive Order 61, there's a guidance document that allows for case-by-case discretion on these employment criteria, and that is what has enabled Catholic Charities to continue to provide these services. If we codify this without giving that type of discretion, then that would jeopardize these contracts.
All right. Are there any others who wish to speak? If so, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jersan Marino-Riano. I represent Regent University, Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs. We're a Christian university in Virginia Beach, Virginia, enrolling over 10,000 students, half of which are residents of the Commonwealth of Virginia. The remaining students represent every part of the union. This is a very important conversation, nuanced and complicated. And given the implications of HB 1049, particularly regarding places that provide public accommodation and does not have a robust religious exemption for educational institutions like our own, and maybe another 24 religious universities in the Commonwealth of Virginia, who would like to ask the committee not to report on the bill, but to give us an opportunity to work with the patron and sponsor of the bill and others to craft the kind of language that would advance the common good for our institutions and other institutions as well, to take into account religious exemptions for public accommodation institutions like our own. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, I hate to make the meeting later. I just want to ask the gentleman from Regent a question or two, if I might. When you said public accommodation, what do you have in mind?
Well, as an institution, we for example, the Virginia Symphony plays at our university, theater, plays, sporting events, those kinds of things are open to the public, and consequently, given the language of the bill, that would affect us significantly.
Okay, and if I could follow up, I called up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I called up Liberty University recently and asked if they would admit gay students. And they said they would. That the student conduct, as long as it was all equal, as long as there was no premarital sex that they knew of, I guess, between students of any gender, that was the same code of conduct for whether they're straight or gay or whatever. So I was just curious how it would compromise you in terms of theater groups or whatever if this bill passed.
Anyone from the public can come to our campus at any moment in time. It's an open campus, open university. But I think given some of the language in the bill, and given that we really haven't had the opportunity to have a conversation with those who sponsored the bill to think about what would happen to an institution like Regent if we're forced to comply in certain ways and compromise our own religious identity. So all we're asking for is a conversation to try to craft language for the bill.
Okay, and just to follow up, Mr. Chair.
Senator Urban.
I'm not sure if it's this bill or maybe it's my bill 868 that was the public accommodations bill that you might not like. But anyway, thanks for being here today.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Senators, I'm also with Regent University. My name's Louis Isikoff. I'm Senior Vice President and General Counsel, and I would like to address a few additional points. Regent does have over 10,000 students. We're a firm believer in diversity. Over half our students are members of a minority, and 64% are female. We're also a faith-based organization. Our statement of faith confirms that we believe the Bible is our authoritative source of Christian doctrine and precept. Everything we do from hiring practices into our educational and extracurricular programs is based on this premise. Employees, our student leaders, and students in our divinity school who are in programs leading to ordination have to sign off on the statement of faith. Other students have to at least acknowledge that they're willing to be educated by Judeo-Christian principles. Parents send their students to our schools based on this commitment. Even our large adult learner population knows about our commitment to biblical values. They expect us to follow this, including traditional views of sexual identity. If a student or parent doesn't subscribe to the traditional biblical views, there are plenty of opportunities, countless opportunities for them to get education in Virginia or outside of Virginia. We believe that providing a traditional Christian education provides parents and students a choice in a multicultural, multi-religious country and strengthens the diversity in this country. Parents and students who are seeking a traditional quality education with biblical faith integration would not attend Regent under the current bill. How could we respond to a female student, for instance, that's asked to room with another student who's anatomically male but identifies as a female? Even if the roommate situation could be worked out, there's locker rooms, bathrooms, and other things. In the roommate situation, if we removed one student or the other from that situation, we'd be accused of discriminating. We'd have to fight the matter out in court. So we believe the current bill, even with a limited religious exemption, if it were added, it would dramatically abridge our First Amendment rights and the rights of our students and the parents, our entire community. The patrons bill talks about public accommodations. We do have lectures that are open to the public. The campus is open to the public. The library is open to the public. Dr. Moreno-Riano mentioned the Virginia Symphony performing on campus. We'd have to stop all that. That would hurt the community. That would hurt our students. The employment exemption in the current bill doesn't have a religious exemption to say, yes, you can hire people of your faith, but it doesn't protect you if you say to someone, your lifestyle doesn't comport with biblical values. And there are Christians who believe one way or the other on this. We've just based our reading on traditional Christian doctrine. So the other bills that Senator Eben, you referred to, a lot of them don't apply when the organization holds itself out to the public as offering goods, services, or privileges. And we do that on our campus. You know, the First Amendment has two elements. It's a prohibition against the government establishing a religion, but also, more important to the discussion of this bill and the other bills that are pending, it's a prohibition against limiting the free exercise of religion. The present bill, as well as other bills under consideration, clearly adversely affects the free exercise of religion. In some of the other bills, the Attorney General can seek punitive damages without cap, even if there's no complaining victim. Some of the bills prohibit propensity.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be careful.
Senator Garvin.
I am friendly to your amendment. I would suggest that you keep your comments concise and targeted to this bill because you're putting your amendment in jeopardy. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would just close then quoting Supreme Court Justice Kennedy in the Hobby Lobby case. In our constitutional tradition, freedom means that all persons have the right to believe or strive to believe in a divine creator and a divine law. For those who choose this course, free exercise is essential in preserving their own dignity and striving for a self-definition shaped by their religious precepts. Free exercise in this sense implicates more than just freedom of belief. It means, too, the right to express those beliefs and establish one's religious or non-religious self-definition. That's what we're seeking, and like Dr. Moreno-Riano suggested, we suggest this bill be deferred to let time to work out a balance between the gender identity issue and the First Amendment rights of organizations such as ours. Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Rick Yost. I'm the superintendent of Fredericksburg Christian School, and I'm a district representative for the Association of Christian Schools International. It's the largest Christian school association in the world. We have 24,000 schools across the world and 87 member schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm speaking to you today to ask for your help in amending the bill before us. There are currently provisions that do not clearly allow religious organizations like the Christian schools I represent to operate unencumbered with the free exercise of religion that is guaranteed in the Constitution of Virginia. Forcing our schools to hire people who may be wonderful employees in other organizations but who do not subscribe to the major tenets of our faith could put our schools in great jeopardy, with families who attend our schools largely because of the values that we have. Before my 23 years in Christian education, I spent 22 years in the corporate world, in for-profit, nonprofit, even the staffs of elected officials or any other kinds of organizations. People are hired who will further the mission of that entity. People who align as much as possible with our organizational culture, tenets, and philosophies. None of us in this room would ask someone to further our mission if they did not believe in the major components of it. We're asking you today to amend the bill before us so that the wording is clear with regard to public accommodation and employment with respect to religious entities. It just makes good policy for many thousands in the Commonwealth, and they will benefit from that clarity. Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Jeremy Woody. I'm the head of school of a small Christian school in Central Virginia, Ridgeview Christian School. I've heard senators and delegates, both in person, also in session, and even in discussion today, say that the intentions of this bill are not to infringe on those who are overtly religious organizations, such as the one that I'm a part of. And I appreciate the conversations that have been a part of that. The ambiguity surrounding religious protections in regards to public accommodations and employment are very concerning to myself and other ministries like the one that I lead. And it is our request that this committee adopt amendments that, with language consistent with other vetted laws such as ADA and others, to ensure that the stated intentions of these delegates and senators are codified to ensure that their intentions are actually protected. Thank you for your time.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, Senators, my name is Bruce Hunter. I'm an administrator of Grove Christian School here in Richmond. In my over 35 years as a school administrator, I learned that one of the key elements to us effectively accomplishing our mission at the school was the partnership between employees and the school administration, between parents and families, and it was all based upon our shared beliefs and our shared support, active support of our statement of faith. And I'm just here to ask that you would include, if this bill goes forward, strong religious protections so that we may continue to hire faculty and staff that will support us and support our mission and tenets. Thank you.
All right. Delegate Levine.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, lots of things to respond to. Let me start with the fact that religions are allowed to discriminate under the law. Even though we have laws against religious discrimination, Catholics don't have to hire Jews to be priests. Protestant ministers don't have to hire Catholics, nor do they have to hire Muslims. That's not in Virginia law. We do not require religious organizations to hire people outside their religions. We don't. So that's not in the bill. What is in the bill is a codification of Governor McAuliffe's Executive Order 61. So the only thing this matters is when you have state funding of religion, which I would argue may even be a First Amendment violation when the state establishes a religion. But if we're not talking about state funding of religion, none of that is relevant. Now, when you have state-funded religion, you don't have state-funded theology. So all the discussions about theology, I know of no taxpayer dollars that go to ordination or to training priests or ministers or rabbis. That's all done with private funds. But when it comes to state contracts, Catholic Charities does tremendous work with refugees, and they've done it continuously for a long time, and they've done it under Executive Order 61. Executive Order 61, which was put out by Governor Terry McAuliffe, quote, it requires future state contracting to require prohibitions on discrimination in employment, subcontracting, and delivery of goods and services, including discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Part 2 of the executive order says that the state prohibits discrimination, including that based on sexual orientation or gender identity, in the provision of state services. They've told you that this executive order does not affect their practice. They've told you that it's been continuous. In fact, they've even told you they don't discriminate. If they don't discriminate, all this does, the only 2 sections they've complained of, all it does is codify current law. That's all we're doing. Nothing will change. We're codifying the current executive order that has not bothered them in the past. I am, however, extremely concerned with this amendment, and I'm very sorry that they chose not to talk to me. I did not know of this amendment until they showed it to me just now. You know, the bill's been around for a month. It passed the House weeks ago. No one in this line chose to chat with me about it, so I could have saved them some time, I think, by showing them the executive order. But this amendment has some real dangers to it. What it does is it says that state-funded discrimination on the basis of race will now be legal. Now, currently, you can't fund state discrimination on the basis of race. We all know the case of Bob Jones University. This was a university that said, our religious tenet is we don't like black people. We want to discriminate against them, and we want government funds to do so. Well, now I guess Bob Jones University can discriminate against black people for the first time in Virginia history if this amendment becomes law. This amendment would also allow clear discrimination on the basis of religion with state funds. So you have Virginia funds for a job, but no Jews can apply, no Baptists, no Muslims, maybe no Catholics. You could have a state-funded job where they say, I'm sorry, we don't allow Catholics. That's what this rule does. The other thing it does, and in addition, which is why I think it's a clear violation of the First Amendment, is it says that state establishment of religion, the state establishes a religion by giving funds to that religion and then allows those religious tenets to take all our taxpayer funds. So you have people of all different religions that pay their taxes, but it only goes to these people. Now, if they don't discriminate, and they say they don't, and I take them at their word, none of this bothers them. But this amendment will allow those that do discriminate to suddenly discriminate for the first time in Virginia history. In addition to being clearly, in my view, unconstitutional, this amendment opens up Virginia to discrimination that's never had. This is a change to current law. All my bill does is add sexual orientation, gender identity to current non-discrimination statutes. This bill, though, allows discrimination against race, against religion, against color, and against sex, and against national origin for the first time in Virginia history. That's why I really wish they'd shown me this amendment before just today, because I think I would have shown them that we don't want to suddenly open up the Virginia Code to this discrimination.
All right.
We will pass the bill without this amendment.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
The issue is before the committee now.
Mr. Chairman, speak to the amendment.
Okay.
I will point out that I have supported every non-discrimination bill that has come through this body We have passed now the language from Senator Eben that will protect in public and private sector employment. And Senator Eben's bill has a phrase in it that specifically, and he can probably quote it better, says that organizations can hire employees of the same faith. This amendment says religious tenets of such organization, which is not far off that line. The issue that is here that is clear and apparent, that is different either than the executive order or in anything else that we've passed before, is that you're changing codes. You're changing in the code the qualifications of contractors to be eligible to contract with the state government. And if you have a religious organization that has a contract with the state government and that religious organization's beliefs are different than yours, they no longer are eligible to contract with the state government. And this is, we're already protected in employment law that we're passing this year. We're protected in all other aspects that they must employ appropriately. But in these two portions, so I would say to you, if the amendment at the end of those phrases is not qualified enough to accomplish the goal of not excluding them as contractors, then perhaps you can offer language that your intent is that they will not be excluded based on their beliefs as contractors with the Commonwealth. And I think we can come up with language that can accomplish that so that the symphony can indeed have a contract with a university that has different, that may have those beliefs as a tenet of their principles.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Sure.
Yeah.
Delegate Levine, just
So
quickly.
Executive Order 61, which is currently the law in Virginia, and I'm happy to take this word for word, says, this is currently the law and Catholic Charities continues to function under it, says that by the power of the Chief Executive, by Article 5 of the Constitution of Virginia, I hereby order the following: require future state contracting to require prohibitions on discrimination in employment, subcontracting, and delivery of goods and services, including discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. That is current law. Now, I understand some folks may not like Governor McAuliffe's executive order, but we do know it hasn't affected any of the good people that have come and testified because they've done their work. Not a single person has testified that this executive order stopped them from doing their work. All I did was add sexual orientation and gender identity to the current code. If people want an amendment to exactly track this language word for word from Governor McAuliffe's executive order, I'm fine with it. I think it actually does exactly the same thing. In fact, the executive order may be a little broader than my bill. But if that's the wish, to use this executive order, which we know has caused no harm to any of these good people, we can do that. But the idea that we're going to repeal Governor McAuliffe's executive order, which has done no harm to these people, and allow discrimination for the first time in the Virginia Code, I can't accept that. And so again, this is the law. All we're doing is codifying this executive order.
All right. The bill is before the committee.
Sorry, I'm late. Can we hear from Jeff on the response? I apologize. I'm late.
All right. This will be the third time at least the third time, if not more.
Thank you for your patience.
We've been at this for close to an hour, so we need to move along. So.
Yes, thank you very much for your indulgence. And just to explain on the executive order, so there is a guidance document that was issued in pursuant to the executive order and after the executive order that clarifies that on a case-by-case basis, the contracting agency can make an exception to the employment non-discrimination provision if they see a cause to do so, so that a faith-based organization can continue to be part of that contract and to offer those contractual services. So we have actually obtained that exception in several of these cases, in all these cases since the 2017 executive order, and that's what has allowed us to continue to participate. What we fear is that if this bill passes and there's no type of exemption language, then that goes away.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reeves and then Senator Donovan.
Jeff, I'm just trying to figure out a compromise here, and if the religious tenets are described as sexual orientation and gender identity, are those the two that in the religious tenets? Because I do agree with Delegate Levine that the way it's written, it would allow, if part of your religious tenets were not to allow people of different color or race to discriminate against. So the way the amendment's written, it would allow you to do that under those religious tenets, but I think if you could spell out the religious tenets that you're talking about of sexual orientation, gender itself, and list them, that might be more amenable. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out the argument here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to propose an amendment that we include the language that is in the guidance document on a case-to-case basis, that that whatever the language says in the guidance document, that the state can consider exceptions on a case-to-case basis so that we perpetuate the balance that has existed since the executive order was put into place with those guidance documents.
I'm unaware of any guidance language. I'd like to see it. Council, do you have that guidance language? Does anyone have it?
Then, Mr. Chairman, may we take this by for a week until that can be resolved?
There's been an assertion there is this guidance language. Do you have the guidance language?
I don't have it on me. I can certainly provide it. I don't have it on me right now.
Yeah, I was unaware that such guidance language existed.
Thank you. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask that this pass by for the week.
Mr. Chairman, move to report.
We have a request. Do you want to pass by for the week, or do you want us to go forward and take action?
Put it this way. Why don't we maybe look at the motion to report, and if it doesn't move forward, then maybe we can reconsider. And again, I am unaware of such guidance language. They didn't even mention the executive order. I mean, it may exist. I haven't heard about it. No one has told me about it.
Pick between the two.
Mr. Chairman,
do you want to go by for the week? If not, then we'll proceed to take action on things.
I think in good faith, it is reasonable if there is guidance language that has enabled a symbiotic relationship between these entities and the state of Virginia, that it would be in all of our best interest to preserve that.
If such guidance language exists, again, this was all by ambush, so I had no idea that there was even a suggestion of an amendment, and I have not seen the guidance language. But
Mr. Chairman,
if that's what folks want to do, I certainly defer to the will of the committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think there was an ambush here. Good Faith's kind of left the building on this one. If they want to work after that, I've got a motion. I made a motion to report. I believe it's been seconded.
All right.
Motion the bill be carried over for the week.
Second.
All right. We have a substitute motion to carry the bill over. Is there any further discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? No. The chair is in doubt. Let's put it on the board. So.
Ayes 8, noes 5.
Okay.
All right, we'll carry it over for the week.
We'll come back for a week. I got a much
fine.
simpler bill next.
You hope.
I think so. I think so. I'd like to do HB 183 if I could. HB 183 is a bill that allows localities, does not require them, but it permissively allows localities, if they want to fund their law libraries. It allows them to raise the fee on a civil action from $4 to $7. Now, I tried to figure out when this $4 was done, and I went back to the 1980s. It has to have been before then, so it's been $4 for at least 30 years. Again, it is permissive. It is not required. Law libraries are really important because law libraries are the way that citizens who don't have lawyers can find out their rights under the law. The majority of people who use law libraries are not lawyers. They're people who can't afford lawyers, want to know their rights under civil law, want to know their rights under criminal law. They're very important. I know they're very important to my locality of Alexandria, but frankly, it would allow any locality to do this. The cost of a civil action, we know civil actions are very expensive. They can run easily in the tens of thousands of dollars. $3 more, I don't think will be a significant problem. But again, it's merely permissive. If a locality does not want to do it, they don't have to.
All right, are there questions of the patron on this bill? All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Sarah Taylor with the City of Alexandria. This is a priority for the city. Our law library is much more than just a big room with dusty books and a Westlaw subscription and forms that people can fill out. We also provide a lot of programming and a lot of services to folks in our community, everything from programming on becoming a citizen, landlord-tenant law, navigating traffic court, estate planning, expungement. Our law library is partnered with our sheriff's office to provide a book club for inmates in our jail. This isn't just about law books and Westlaw, and so we're hopeful that this permissive opportunity for us to raise the fee from $4 to no more than $7 is something that you would allow us to give us the authority to do. It is something that the support of the City of Alexandria, has the support of the Law Library in Virginia Beach, the Law Library in Fairfax, Law Library in Richmond, and so we'd ask for your support for this bill. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, and I've heard about this from Ms. Taylor before, either her or Delegate Levine. When was the last time this fee was increased? Did you already say that?
I haven't been, before the 1980s, because that's as far as I could go back online. It's been at least 30 years.
I think that's a worthwhile point. But
Senator Edmund, might have been about the last time we had a pay increase for legislators. So
I don't know if was it before Senator Saslow was in office or after?
The dark ages. No, long time.
All right. Are there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill?
Move to report.
All right. We have a motion to report and a second. Any further discussion in the committee? All right. We will vote on the board.
Ayes 11, noes 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My third bill, HB 321, I want to save you some time and move it to go by for the week, if I could.
All right, that's fine.
Ask that it be moved to go by for the week.
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll be back here anyway. So.
I got to come back here anyway. Exactly.
That's right. All right, Delegate Carr, and then Delegate Bildova.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
I have an agency bill. 1099 is an agency bill at the request of the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. This bill would extend an exemption to rail projects relating to requirements for both OAG and DGS to review high-risk contracts before an agency may execute. Currently, VDOT is exempt from this review requirement for road project construction and design. This bill extends the exemption to DRPT. The bill enables DRPT to streamline the delivery of new construction and design needs related to the $3.7 billion transformational rail agreement with CSX, which includes the $1.9 billion design and construction of a new long bridge that will benefit all rail passengers in the Commonwealth. Finally, the bill raises DRPT's $2 million threshold to $5 million for awarding multiple rail and public transportation architectural and engineering contracts in anticipation of the forthcoming needs related to major projects. Jennifer Mitchell from DRPT is here and available to provide any additional details that the members may require.
All right, are there questions of the patron? All right. Anyone wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Chairman Barker, members of the committee, I'm Jennifer Mitchell, Director of the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. This does simply extend some similar exemptions that VDOT has for roadway projects to DRPT for some of the construction projects that we'll have coming up related to the Long Bridge and other rail construction. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Jennifer Mitchell? So, all right.
Move to report.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of
Wait,
anticlimactic.
this one has to go upstairs, so it'll be a mission. We got a motion to report and re-refer to finance. Is there a second? Second. All right. Any further discussion? All in. Let's vote on the board on the motion.
Ayes 12, no 0.
All right. Ayes 12, no 0. The
Thank you, Mr.
bill is
Chairman.
reported. So.
Senators.
All right. Delegate Bulova. You sure you don't want us to leave now? So.
No, I got as much time as you need. So, anyways, I think the first one is House Bill 511.
All right.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you've seen similar bills to this in the past, and it's not because they've been defeated. It's because this section of the code has become a little bit of a Christmas tree. What this bill does is allows all state agencies to install fee-based electric vehicle charging stations at their discretion. And so one of the challenges with electric vehicles is making sure there's an adequate infrastructure in place. An early impediment was that if you want to sell electricity, that makes you a utility, and you would be regulated under the State Corporation Commission. And so back in 2011, we said, hey, if you're a private entity, you can sell electricity and not be considered a utility. Over the years, it's been evident that the public sector and public property also plays a really important role in this infrastructure. And so over the last couple of years, we broadened the legislation to include public schools, local governments, colleges and universities, state parks. And then last year, we included DGS, VDOT, and DMV. And so that only leaves a handful of state agencies that can't go ahead and do this. And so all this bill does is streamline the code and simply allows any state agency to install a electric vehicle charging station. The alternative is that they can give away that electricity. I think they would prefer not to go ahead and do that. So anyways, Mr. Chairman, that is what the bill does.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron?
Yeah, I have a question and maybe a motion unless others questions. Do you drive an electric vehicle?
I used to drive a hybrid and got rear-ended, so now I drive a VW.
And I love the bills you bring. I just was curious.
What was it? Are there other questions of the patron? Is there anyone in the public who's left who would like to say something? So, all right, the bill is before the committee. You got a question?
Is there any infrastructure cost that would require to go to
Mr.
finance?
Chairman, no infrastructure costs that are associated with this.
Okay. Thank you. Well, permissive, but it's government.
Right.
So.
Right. All right, the bill's before the committee. All right, we got a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? Let's vote on the board.
Ayes 12, no 0.
All right, 12-0, that bill is reported.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, I have House Bill 513 is next.
All right.
And everybody has probably seen the play, The Death of a Salesman. So this is the bad sequel, Death of a Real Estate Broker. This section of the code deals with what happens on the death or disability of a licensed real estate broker when that person was the only licensed broker in a corporation or a partnership. The problem is that the code only references corporations and partnerships and doesn't include other potential business entities like LLCs. And so this bill just fixes that by referencing the types of businesses where these situations may apply. And that's the bill, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is there any questions of the patron? All right, anybody in the public wish to speak?
Bill.
All right, we have, before the committees, the motion to report it, I think I heard, so, and probably a second, so. All right, any further discussion? Let's vote on the board.
Ayes 12, no zero.
All right, that bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you very much. With that, we got through a lot of bills today, so we're not going to have too much, hopefully. All right, we are adjourned.